So for the thin middle-aged man to hold this much strength already makes him a formidable thing. On top of that, he keeps a few trump cards, and a temporary show of diamond rank strength is well within his reach. That is the foundation of his certainty. Beyond that, as a veteran of the Alliance of Gods, he holds inside knowledge that greenhorns like Baekhyun and I know nothing of. As the God King's brainwashing deepens, he selects members of sufficient potential to be groomed as core members. They are no longer mere disposable fuel, but key pieces woven into his strategic designs. As objects of the God King's special attention, each core member carries a sliver of the God King's own power. Within their spiritual seas, the God King's mark can summon for a short while a projection of the God King himself to descend and fight. With so many layers of insurance beneath him, the naturally careful thin middle-aged man does not fear Baekhyun's scheming in the slightest. He looks at the regional map, brimming with confidence, and then drives his own island straight toward Baekhyun's. If only Baekhyun had sailed, contact would have taken an hour. But with the thin middle-aged man now closing in as well, the time collapses. It will take a mere 20 minutes for the two to slam together at zero distance. Come then, he thinks. Since the newcomer delivers himself to the door, he will happily accept the gift. His own devouring has slowed of late, so the timing could not be better. Swallowing this one island carries him to 29 units, past that rat to the east, making him the single largest thing in the region. He will not betray the God King's trust. He laughs, watching the two islands rush together, already seeing himself as the region's overlord in the God King's right hand, and his wild laughter rolls on and on. The thin middle-aged man's move catches Baekhyun's eye as well. Baekhyun simply produces a palm-sized item shaped like a pocket watch and studies the giant island's odd motion. Then he tells me the target is on the move and coming our way. He hands the pocket watch over, and the moment I take it, I am pulled straight in. Its face carries no hands and no numbers, only a display screen crowded with colored points of light and a vortex-shaped icon at the center. Right now, a white dot marked 21 is racing toward a blinking 1. I know it at a glance. This is a miniature version of the regional map. The regional map is only supposed to be viewable at the Black Island's core, and I never expected Baekhyun to be carrying something this convenient. With an item like this, I could check the map anytime, anywhere, and spare myself the endless running back and forth. This kid kept it so well hidden and never once brought it out. After this battle, I am going to fleece him down to the lining. Still, I know the moment is urgent and not the time to raise it. I file away my quiet vow to shake him down, and simply say that at this rate we meet in under 20 minutes, so we need to pick up the pace. By now I have loosed my ants, and I give Swift Shadow the order to deploy the troops fast. Hovering ant airships, packed full of the ant army, drift up into the sky like harmless clouds. Within those soft-looking clouds hides a genuinely lethal weight of force. Baekhyun nods lightly, his own subordinates already at the border, fully armed and waiting only for the fighting to begin. My ants are both plentiful and high in quality, and most of my vassals handle logistics, with only a small slice kept at real combat strength. Talented sorts like Son Wei-pung, a gifted swordsman, got led thoroughly astray by me. He went soaring off down the alchemist's road, instead, past all hope of coming back. Some crimes I will happily own. Baekhyun lacks my professional advantage, so he has had no choice but to cultivate his own vassals hard. With his careful training and heavy investment, their combat strength is genuinely respectable. Many have even broken through to Tier 1 and reached Platinum rank. At a stage where Diamond rank is rare and Platinum still forms the backbone, that is quite something. His strongest card, of course, is himself. Baekhyun is the second fastest riser in our little circle, behind only me, and this time is no exception. At a point where 09 still needs roughly 2 more days to secure Diamond rank power, Baekhyun already crossed into Tier 2 and claimed his own 2 days ahead of her. That does not mean her talent trails his. His swift breakthrough owes everything to the nature of his power. With the King's treasury, so long as the items inside are rare and numerous enough, he can unleash the utmost strength of his current realm. So the instant he touched Tier 2, he seized Diamond rank strength outright. It is monstrously unfair. We both claim to be still getting ready, but in truth the pair of us were prepared long ago, with very little left to do. All that remains is to wait, quiet and still. And across the way the thin middle-aged man is still laughing with all his confidence, with no idea in the world of what is about to land on him. I watch the giant island, close enough now to make out its full outline, and shake my head. A pity 09 is jammed at a bottleneck just now, I say, because if she could have joined this one, it would have gone far easier. Baekhyun smiles, unbothered, and says it cannot be helped that she has hit a wall. She has already given us more than enough under normal circumstances. He has kitted his subordinates out with some of the auxiliary items from Will and Xiongha, so their preparations are thorough, more than enough for the target. Besides, he adds, having me along is worth 1,000 armies. Cut it out, I curse with a laugh, and watch the island rushing in. We are nearly there, and I tell him to ready the landing. A bare 20 minutes flashed past. In the blink of an eye, Baekhyun's island and the thin middle-aged man's island lock together and interlace, plunging into a life-and-death struggle that has to end with one victor. The instant they connect, I give the order to advance. Hundreds of hovering ants, loaded to the brim with the ant army, storm the target island, and Baekhyun waves his hand to send his own men across. I watch his subordinates with real curiosity, because they do not pour forward in a graceless swarm. They are well drilled, split into 5-man squads, each squad under a squad leader. Every 10 squads answers to a company commander, and above them stand battalion commanders and a single general commander, at once spread wide and tightly run. Catching my gaze, Baekhyun explains with a smile that he has a great many subordinates, professionals drawn from every field. This is a combat command system, he says, designed jointly by warriors with real battlefield experience and by professional gamers. I frown, confused. Battlefield commanders I understand, but what in the world is a professional gamer? Baekhyun carries on. Though we still stand in the real world and not a game, the dark world does hold extraordinary powers, and some of the coordination in combat plays very differently from anything on Blue Star. Games, on the other hand, carry a long-matured system for the coordinated use of extraordinary powers. Copying games wholesale would be unrealistic too, so we had people fuse the two and built this management system out of it. I nod and smile that it is not bad. I have never properly studied the combat tactics of vassals, and his system is a fine one, so I will send people over to compare notes later. I will simply copy his homework. Baekhyun says with a smile that it is no problem, that I am always welcome. As we talk, we ride the magic carpet, hanging back behind the main force, and follow it onto the island. The thin middle-aged man's border is barren and utterly undeveloped, with no troops and no traps at all. At first, the two of us stay cautious and alert, but against all expectation there is not the slightest movement. Watching ant and vassal alike swagger onto the island without a shred of resistance, I frown, puzzled. I say it is strange that there is nothing here. Since the target came at us on his own, he should have made ample preparations, so why is nothing set up? Baekhyun is puzzled as well. Even if he took us for men come to pledge allegiance, he says he ought to at least send an envoy. To leave the place this undefended, is that confidence or arrogance? Why play the empty fort? Logically, an undefended enemy ought to be good news, yet it leaves us uneasy. A straight, hard weapon-to-weapon clash would sit far more comfortably. Forget it, I decide. Since matters have come this far, we press on no matter what, and I will send sentry ants to scout ahead first. I have them gather intelligence within a half-hour's march before the main force follows behind at a slow, cautious pace. I exhale, give the order, and set the sentry ants to their work. While they scout, the two of us do not act rashly. We hold in place and wait patiently for the reconnaissance to come back. Before long, the sentry ants report in. Several iron frame high towers have been sighted ahead, their function unknown, and over 1,000 humans in silver armor have been spotted 30 kilometers out, riding motorcycles and driving toward our position. Baekhyun and I exchange a look, relieved. So he was not unprepared for us, Baekhyun says a little wryly. He simply was not ready, and his men had not yet arrived, not ready, and still in such a hurry to sail over and make contact. How far does he look down on us? The contempt does not trouble me at all, and I say with a smile that the more the enemy sneers at us, the better. Still, the current intelligence is a touch vague. These enemies all wear identical armor, which surely serves some function we need to probe first. And those metal high towers, built in such numbers, must have a purpose too, whether facilities for resource production or for combat. Let me send troops to feel them out first. Baekhyun nods in agreement and swallows the urge to loose his own men. Soon a single hovering ant peels off from the group and flies ahead. Its passengers are mainly the thick-shelled black scythe hunting ants, along with some tunneling ants. 30 kilometers stands between the two sides, which sounds far, but at their present speeds it is only a few minutes before they meet. Under Swift Shadow's command, the hovering ant does not fly far or dive over the enemy's heads for a sudden aerial strike. It lands early and spreads its forces on the ground along the enemy's path. The tunneling ants set to work at once, swiftly digging several tunnels. This unit of black scythe hunting ants, led by 5 diamond-grade black scythe hunter ants, lies in ambush within, waiting in silence for the enemy to arrive. Baekhyun sits on the magic carpet, a monocle at his eye, watching the ground ahead. Then he turns back to me, more than a little shaken. He asks whether I am serious. I called it a probe, yet I am going all out, throwing out 5 diamond rank ants and hundreds of platinum rank ants. With a force like that, one probe looks set to grind the opponent to dust and leave nothing behind. A probe that reads as a death sentence. I only smile faintly and shake my head. I tell him it is just a precaution. I cannot gamble with my ants' lives, can I? Facing this many men, if they are sitting on some hidden trump card that costs me losses, that would be no good. Baekhyun warmly approves of the caution and wears the look of a man who has taken a valuable lesson to heart, saying that I am ruthless. The two of us fix our eyes on the field ahead. Soon the enemy vanguard comes roaring in on their motorcycles, plowing straight and unwarned into the pits the tunneling ants dug, and pitching men and machines over in a tangle. Someone shouts a warning of an ambush. At that speed they cannot break in time, and dozens tumble into the pits and lose all sense of direction. An attack at this level can only rattle these well-equipped, capable enemies for a moment, not truly disable them. But the tunneling ants were never the main act. As the men pitch into the deep pits, black scythe-hunting ants cloaked in black and all but melted into the surroundings rise from within like ghosts. A light flick of their scythe-shaped mandibles delivers force enough to stun the fallen men at once. Then the tunneling ants haul them off to be bundled up and taken. Their movements are quick and seamless, and in a single instant those dozens of men vanish without a trace under the very noses of the local forces. I have no intention of grinding these enemies too hard. They only follow orders, and it is their chief who is the piece that matters. Once the local chief goes down, every one of them becomes Baekhyun's vassal. The more of them I keep intact, the more resources I gather when it comes time to split the spoils. In my eyes, these men are walking resources. As those dozens disappear into the pits, the remaining enemies dare not push forward. They keep their distance from the holes and trade bewildered glances, one snarling that they just lost dozens of men, another barking at them not to panic and to do as the Lord ordered. They do not stall long. Quickly they reform ranks and draw silver-white staves from their motorcycles which they begin to wave. As they do, my gaze and Baekhyun's both sharpen. Here it comes, I think. This chief kits his subordinates out so uniformly that he must have some ability to train and forge troops. And now we see what it amounts to. The faster they swing the staves, the more the air around them begins to churn with rising wind. I start to speak, and across Baekhyun's monocle a stream of data flickers as he seems to reach his answer. He tells me they look to be releasing a wind attribute ability. A wind attribute ability. The thought has barely formed when a giant tornado tears into being out of nothing before us. It drills straight down into the pits the tunneling ants dug and rages there like a wild thing. In an instant, the pits are torn apart and blown wide, ripped open to bear the many ants beneath. Luckily, the tunneling ants and black scythe hunting ants are powerful enough that the razor-edged tornado cannot flip them out entirely. The display genuinely surprises me. Wind attribute abilities are rare to begin with, and the real point is that this chief has cultivated a well-drilled wind attribute force. His ability is quite interesting. The tornado's raw power just now surely touched the upper middle reach of platinum rank, and setting the power aside, this skill, released in concert by thousands, lasts markedly longer than the usual kind. Yet by my reading, only a handful of these men have broken through to Tier 1, while the rest have not so much as brushed the threshold. That they can still lose something this fearsomely strong genuinely surprises me, and it stirs up a heap of interest. I wonder whether the uniform itself plays a part, or whether they all learned some common trick to turn ordinary vassals into a real fighting force this quickly. I order Swift Shadow to move in now and bring them down. She confirms at once. The black scythe hunting ants the tornado flung loose surge forward and bear down on the enemy. The men, seeing their sure-thing attack come to nothing, mount their motorcycles and try to run, only to plunge again into the traps the tunneling ants quietly dug and go tumbling over. One by one, the arriving black scythe-hunting ants knock them cold and gather them up. Baekhyun says that is it, scratching at the situation, faintly surprised, feeling all the while that something is off. I shake my head lightly, not the least bit pleased at bagging over 1,000 men in a single stroke. The enemy's strength will not be that simple, I tell him. This is a top-ranked chief in the whole region, and to my mind this is a unit he sent to feel us out. Some of the intelligence I loosed about my own ants a moment ago should already be in his hands. Baekhyun repeats the words, taken aback. I say, of course, with a smile. Are we the only ones allowed to probe, and not the enemy? This one may be unlike the others we have met, because he seems cautious, and throwing 1,000-man unit at us to scout is exactly how a man conceals his true intentions. As I guessed, my read is correct. Some of our intelligence was indeed probed out, picked up through those two giant iron towers. The thin middle-aged man now sits at a table, tapping the surface over and over with his right index finger. All his early confidence gone, his brows knot tight and his face is grim. 1,000-strong wind element unit taken alive in a heartbeat, he broods. To pull that off, those insect-type monsters must run at least upper-middle platinum rank, or even diamond rank. No, it should not reach that far, he corrects himself, shaking his head. If they truly held such strength, why would the enemy throttle his own development and still sit at only 8 units? They cannot be aiming solely at him. That would be flattering himself too far. In any case, the enemy is troublesome. Should he pour out his full strength and go all in, or... He rises, fingertips brushing his temple, where a mysterious golden mark flickers in and out of sight. Or should he simply call on the power the God King bestowed and crush them in one blow? He paces the room back and forth and finds the decision hard to make. As he walks, he stops, gazing at the hundreds of hovering ants his scouts detected and Baekhyun's thousands of ordered troops. One airship alone holds this much power, he thinks. If the other airships run the same, then unless he breaks through to diamond rank, even a win would cost him dearly. Once his strength is gutted, he will become a discarded pawn in the God King's eyes. No, absolutely not. He blows out a long, turbid breath, his eyes hardening, and settles it at once. He will play every trump card he holds. Right now. I have no idea the thin middle-aged man is this wary. I made only the lightest probing move, and I have not even shown my diamond rank ants yet. Only the strength of a few hundred platinum-grade black scythe hunter ants. Even so, the man has chosen to go all in and reach for the trump card the God King gave him. After bagging the 1,000-strong vanguard, I keep leading the army deeper, and the two of us meet no resistance at all. Baekhyun asks me what exactly the armor does. Sitting on the magic carpet, I turn a silver-white suit of armor taken from a captive over in my hands and study it a moment. Under my eye of delusion, breaking the armor lays itself bare, hiding nothing. It is elemental armor of the wind type. It raises elemental affinity and lets the wearer cast a bound skill, the current bound skill being Tornado. Not bad at all, equipment that carries its own skill. Judging by how they used it just now, it should stack as well. No wonder they could put out upper middle platinum rank strength. I nod satisfied and forward the armor's details to Baekhyun. I tell him that with this we can cheaply and sharply raise our vassal's combat power. And since this chief can outfit a whole 1,000-man unit, the set cannot be rare, which means there is a stable way to acquire it. Baekhyun smiles and nods that this fellow is sitting on a lot of good things, and we should hurry up and strip him bare. I chuckle, I say not to get careless. Past that first 1,000 men we have run into no one else, so the chief is likely waiting for us at home. That is fine though, since it spares us the effort and we can net them all in one go. The enemy has stayed absent so long, seemingly letting us march unimpeded, luring us deeper into a trap, and I do not loosen my guard for it. I hold to the same marching pattern, sentry ants scouting a half-hour's road ahead, before the main force follows, slower but very safe. After about 3 hours, a city finally rises into view. It is a steel fortress with towering walls over 100 meters high, and along those walls at this very moment stand rows of figures clad in silver armor and gripping staves. Seeing the imposing city and its armored defenders, my pupils tighten on their own. A wall this tall with soldiers holding it is easy to defend and hard to storm. A straight assault could prove difficult. We just witnessed how fierce those armored warriors' skills are. On open flat ground it is manageable, but perched on a city wall they will be far harder to deal with. I rub my chin, thinking a beat, then lay it out for Baekhyun. If I were to attack this city, I have several plans. One is tunnel warfare, sending the tunneling ants to dig passages and move underground. That is fairly concealed and would work well if the city has no matching defenses. But we already use tunnels ambushing his vanguard, so a cautious enemy should be braced for it. The second is to have the hovering ants airdrop straight in, but that is far too naked, and if the enemy seizes the moment to strike, our losses could be heavy. Then there is the direct assault, grinding them down bit by bit. I do not know the wall's exact defensive strength, but however sturdy they are products of this stage and will not be too outrageous. A diamond-grade self-destruct ant thrown at them should blow open a breach. I add with a smile that we could advance by land, underground, and air all at once, which should leave the enemy unable to cover both ends. Whatever route we take, we always probe first. Baekhyun shakes his head with a smile and says my battle plan is perfectly workable, but he has an easier way. What era is this, he asks, and who still storms a city by traditional means? An easier way. I am a bit puzzled, and then I watch him draw a door out of his storage ring. He sets it on the ground, and with nothing to prop it up, it stands perfectly stable. Then, wearing the face of a man showing off a shiny new toy, he pats the metal door no bigger than an ordinary bedroom door. He asks whether I have ever heard of a go-anywhere door. I stall for a second as distant memories of Blue Star drift back up. I think of a magical gadget from an old cartoon, the one about a blue robot cat with a pocket full of impossible tools, and a door that could cross time and space. Baekhyun really does live up to his name as a man with a bottomless trove. I look at him, surprised, and ask whether he actually has the sort of go-anywhere door from that blue cartoon cat, the kind that travels through time and space. His smile stiffens a little, and he says awkwardly that it is not that extreme. His spatial door can only open passages within 10 kilometers, nothing further. And as for a monstrous trick like time travel, it is not even close. Only 10 kilometers. That is a bit short. I am mildly let down, though I understand. The blue cartoon cat from Blue Star was something close to a conceptual god, and any item it produced carried terrifyingly potent effects. The Dark World only holds a measure of extraordinary power and still bows to basic principles. I look at the spatial door which can barely fit me alone, then at my oversized ants and frown slightly. The distance is more than enough to catch the enemy off guard, I say. But is the door not a bit too small? Baekhyun pats it and tells me not to worry about that. It uses spatial technology, so as long as it is a living creature, however large, it can pass through freely. I nod, relieved, and say that is convenient indeed. No time to waste. Let us get ready to take the city. On the 100-meter wall, the thin middle-aged man stands calm, squinting down at the distant army. By now my forces have reached 3 kilometers outside the city, and from that height he has a clear sweeping view. Large black-shelled ants, cold as killing machines, are ranged neatly at the front, several hundred of them. Behind them come thousands of human squads in fives, following in quiet lockstep, plainly veterans of countless fights. Those monsters up front should all carry platinum rank strength, he thinks, and to raise a force this size the chief is clearly no weakling. The island is only 8 units, so where did he pull the resources from? He lets out a heavy breath of turbid air, thoroughly baffled. Military strength does not spring from nothing, because everything obeys the conservation of energy. It takes resources enough to build a force this strong. He himself never once stopped campaigning, devoured countless island instances, and dragged his island up to 21 units. Yet this is all the strength he can field. He simply cannot fathom how this invader raised such an army. The ants I have shown so far are only the ones loose during the initial probe. My diamond rank ants and main body sit loaded inside the hovering ants, so he remains blind to my true strength. Even so, what stands before him is already enough to startle and unsettle him. The thin middle-aged man wipes the sweat from his brow, quietly counting himself lucky. A good thing they did not go out for a field battle, he thinks, because even a win there would have cost him dearly. He only sent men to test the waters, and those ants below wiped out a 1,000-strong unit of his in the open without a scratch. And it turns out the enemy still hid several thousand fighters besides. He commands tens of thousands of elemental troops and trusts that between the wall and his own strength he need not fear the enemy. Yet he treasures his forces and refuses to eat any losses. His true aim is to unify the whole area, and 2 opponents of a size close to his still remain. First, he decides, try to talk them into surrender, because once they behold his magnificent city, it might just work. If the surrender fails, he will commit everything and lose a small burst of power. Best of all if he takes the enemy down, but if not, he will not force it and risk losing troops and generals. He will simply use the power the chief bestowed on him. The chief's power is more effective in this kind of mass battle, costing him no strength of his own and even turning him a profit. He is genuinely miserly, unwilling to swallow even the smallest loss of men. Against a tough opponent, he secretly resolves to call on the God King's mark. He pats his robe and his whole body is wreathed in crackling arcs of electricity as he lifts into the air, looking imposing and awe-inspiring. They ought to be terrified and trembling at the sight of his heroic bearing, he thinks. He laughs wildly and gazes into the distance, drawing a deep breath to hurl out a grand and thunderous voice. He fills his lungs to bellow, and then his voice fails him. His belly is full of air, but the instant his mouth opens, he catches sight of something that leaves him dumbstruck. The distant troops have begun to turn about and pull back outright, as if truly frightened off by his magnificent city. Damn it, why are they running, he thinks, growing frantic. Could it be they saw his strong city and its swarm of troops and mean to fall back and defend? He holds a magnificent city and the home advantage. If the enemy retreats to defend, that advantage passes to them, and the price of taking them down afterward climbs far higher. No, this will not do. He cannot let them leave. Casting aside all thought of striking a pose, exasperated, he is on the verge of throwing the gates open and giving chase. Then the memory of the earlier ambush surfaces, and he stalls once more into hesitation. While the thin middle-aged man dithers, my team has already led its troops well clear of him. Reaching a reverse slope about 8 kilometers from the city, we conceal the forces and move fast. I tell Baekhyun to pack every one of his soldiers into my hovering ants, so we need only teleport 100 of them and keep it efficient. He nods, wastes no time, and starts directing his subordinates. No time to explain, just get aboard. His men answer in unison. The thin middle-aged man wavers only a moment, and when he looks up into the distance again, my troops and I are nowhere to be seen. He turns even more agitated. They really left, he thinks. No, it seems he must pursue. Restless as an ant on a hot pan, he chews it over, then looks with obvious reluctance at the silk pouch hanging from his belt. He can only spend some beast cores, he thinks, since fielding this many troops at once burns simply too many resources. Decision made, he calls a subordinate over, unties the pouch, and hands it across. He orders the beast cores distributed to 5,000 man units and the pursuit made by airship. The subordinate looks at him in disbelief, unable to grasp what enemy could make their tight-fisted chief spend such a fortune. The thin middle-aged man snaps at him to hurry. The man ventures, uneasily, whether this might be a trick to lure them away. The chief snorts coldly. His steel fortress carries powerful restrictions and can only be attacked head-on, so an assault from the air or from underground simply will not work. He is taking only 5,000 men, and 5,000 more hold the city, an impregnable fortress. Fine if they do not come, he says, and if they truly try some clever ploy, that is exactly what he wants. The subordinate answers that the chief is wise. Soon a giant mechanical airship shaped like a cloud lifts from the great city, bearing a full 5,000 elemental troops, and sets off at speed after my vanished team. The thin middle-aged man does not ride the airship but leaves the city under his own power, flying, following close behind. The Cloudsoar airship has excellent speed and defense, he thinks, and with 5,000 elemental troops it should be able to pin them down. It is a fine chance to loose the God King's mark and turn them to his side. Picturing the enemy's strong, numerous forces all becoming his own power, he cannot help trembling with excitement, and a delighted smile breaks across his face. And just as they clear the walls and give chase, inside the great city a teleportation gate abruptly opens. One giant monster after another squeezes out of it like billowing cloud. The sudden sight throws the city's residents into an uproar, voices crying out to ask what this is and screaming for help. We have indeed slipped clean through his layered defenses and arrived inside his magnificent city, and I smile, satisfied. I pay the panicked commoners no mind and quickly have the hovering ants unload the main force. The moment the ants are free, I give the order. I order them to scout out the enemy's area core at once. The sentry ants acknowledge, and in an instant thousands melt away, folding into the noisy, chaotic streets and fanning out in every direction to hunt the enemy's lair. Baekhyun remarks that this fellow city defense is genuinely solid, laced with powerful restrictions. Had we truly tried to bull our way in earlier, it would have been quite hard, most likely at the cost of heavy losses. Luckily, he adds, he still had a restriction-breaking talisman on hand. Watching his smug face, I smile and shake my head. This one carries far too many strange and wonderful tools, one for every occasion. Anyone who ends up his enemy is genuinely out of luck. A sentry ant reports that it has found the core in the southeast. The city is not large, and under the reconnaissance of thousands of sentry ants, the position of the area core turns up fast. Baekhyun and I trade a glance and nod. Let us go, and take his lair straight out. Inside the Iron City, the elemental armored soldiers on patrol finally notice the tide of giant ants pouring through their streets, and the discovery breaks them. They panic and scatter, and their line dissolves into pure chaos before it can even form. Against the black scythe hunting ant assault teams, their resistance is soft as wet cotton. One by one, the soldiers are knocked senseless, tossed aside and left where they fall. The ants never slow, pressing on toward the area core while behind them the avenues look plowed by heavy machinery, littered with unconscious men in armor. When the danger passes, the braver subjects creep out of their hiding places and stand stunned at the wreckage. Most of them mutter among themselves that a change of chief means nothing, since commoners without talent are consumables no matter who sits on the throne. But the resentment runs deeper than resignation, because these elemental armored soldiers had lorded their gifts over everyone for years. One man points at a fallen soldier and names him as Li Hang, the enforcer of their street. Li Hang used to call him brother, then turned on him the moment the chief chose him, targeting him precisely because he knew the man's shabby past. That single spark is enough. The commoners rush the unconscious soldiers and strip off their armor so they cannot wake and fight. They drape cloth over the soldiers' heads so no faces are seen, then set to beating them in earnest. The same scene erupts in every corner of the Iron City, and the already broken order collapses into something worse. Reinforcements hurrying in from the distant walls find themselves swallowed and held before they can ever reach the fight. Outside the walls, the thin middle-aged man trails the airship and lands within a minute or two at the spot where the invaders slipped into their portal. He finds nothing but a churn of messy footprints that stop dead at one point, with no returning tracks leading away. It makes no sense to him, and he says as much to the empty air, unable to believe that so large a force vanished in the few minutes he arrived late. He searches the ground again and still turns up nothing. Only then does he admit that in a world of extraordinary powers, people vanishing into thin air is entirely possible, by more than one method if he counts them. Cautious as ever, he decides to fall back to the city and plan his next move rather than press forward blindly. But the moment he turns, a low rumble rolls out from the city, and a premonition curdles in his gut. Before he can act, a guard's message reaches him, reporting that the enemy has broken inside and is advancing without resistance. Strangely, the guard adds, they are not making for the chief's residence at all but driving straight for the southeast corner. The guard offers that the invaders must simply be unfamiliar with the city's layout. The words land like a blade. The southeast corner is no random corner. It is exactly where his area core is hidden, and the truth of the trap hits him so hard that a chill climbs from his soles to his skull and sets him shivering. He does not wait for his subordinates. He hurls himself into the air, gray robe snapping, whirlwind and electric arcs wrapping his body, and with a single flicker he is gone. He reappears a mile or two on and closes the last of the distance to the city in a handful of flashes, screaming at the villain to stop. Meanwhile, I am reclining on a magic carpet with Baekhyun, drifting along behind the ant columns and the vassal forces as they roll toward the enemy chief's residence. Baekhyun fishes an assortment of fruit out of his storage ring, faintly fragrant, arranges it on a plate between us, and pushes a piece at me. He tells me to try the newest thing Chungha handed him, a strawberry apple, and asks whether I have ever tasted a strawberry-flavored apple before. I ask him, not for the first time, why he only ever manages to requisition pleasure items when he swore he was getting combat gear from Chungha. I also ask whether snacking is really appropriate in the middle of a battle. He scratches at the back of his head, a little ashamed, and mumbles that he did get the combat items too, but we simply do not happen to need them this minute. I do not bother arguing with the logic. I just pick up one of the strawberry apples critical and take 2 bites. It is absurdly crisp, tender, and juicy. The fresh sweetness floods my mouth so completely that I nod and finish the whole thing in a few more bites, while Baekhyun stares, a little stunned. Not bad for battlefield catering. Right then, a brick and tile house rises into view ahead of us. Small, plain, faintly run down, the single most forgettable structure in the city. Swift shadow reports through our bond that the area core sits just there, and I frown at the shabby little house and ask her whether that is honestly where the thing is kept. She confirms it at once, telling me her tribesmen have scouted it, and the core truly rests inside. It clicks then that the chief is a careful man, tucking his lifeline into the last place anyone would look. I turn to Baekhyun and tell him the enemy core is right in front of us, and that shattering it ends the whole battle. He studies the house, agrees the old man is an insidious sort for hiding it here, and admits that without my aunt's detection he might genuinely have gotten away with it. I tell him to spare me the modesty, since I refuse to believe a schemer like him has no method of his own. He gives me a shy little grin and swears he is truly unremarkable, then raises his right hand. A golden halo blooms above the brick house, and a thick golden beam lances down into it. The beam strikes, and the plain little house throws up an enormous shield of light that drinks the golden ray whole without so much as trembling. A shield does not surprise me. Hidden and humble as the place is, it still guards the area core, and no chief would leave that utterly undefended. It is the way a plain-bodied luxury sedan can hide an obscenely lavish interior behind an ordinary shell. I look at Baekhyun, returned empty-handed, and ask with a smile whether he would like my help. He has a solution of his own, but time is short, so he nods without any showing off and explains that the shield can only be cracked by a specific element, wind or lightning. He asks whether my plasma ants carry lightning skills, and I tell him they do, then order them forward through the species contract. The plasma ants are riding inside a hover ant. At my command, the hover ant splits open its abdominal cavity and the plasma ants stream out on their magnetic levitation, hovering in the air and snapping into a tight square formation. Blue arcs crackle across their abdomens as they begin gathering charge, winding up to loose their plasma. That is when the rushing sound reaches us, and a figure comes flickering across the distance fast enough to pull both my eyes and Baekhyun's toward it. It is the thin middle-aged man in his gray robe, staff in hand, hair standing straight off his scalp from the wind, and the arcs crawling over him. Baekhyun wonders aloud whether this is finally the chief of the Black Island, and why he is only showing up now, as though he had slept through his own siege. We had passed him on our way in while he was leading his men out, and he has only now reached the edge of his own core. He is the key figure who should have been here from the first moment, and even at a dead sprint he is still a step short. By now all 80 plasma ants are fully charged, their currents surging, and 80 lightning beams converge into one thick laser that spears straight at the shield. The old man thought impregnable. He watches with bulging eyes and shrieks of denial. As a master of both wind and lightning, he feels exactly how much lightning is packed into that laser, and lightning is one of the only 2 elements his shield ever feared. He had raised that barrier betting that wind and lightning were rare, that even the few who wielded them would not have cultivated them well enough to break through cleanly. He simply never imagined that I would happen to keep lightning ants, neither few in number nor low in quality, and that oversight is about to blow up in his own face. The instant the plasma of 80 platinum-ranked plasma ants touches the shield, the barrier resists for 1 token heartbeat, and then caves like a crushed egg. The lightning laser carries through without losing momentum, and slams into the shabby brick house, and the whole thing bursts apart in an instant. My manual reports the enemy core under attack, and failing, its integrity sliding past 70, then 40, then to nothing. Then it announces the area core destroyed, the chief stripped of his status and left a free man. The struggle for this Black Island decided. The thin middle-aged man is barely 1,000 meters out, and he still missed the final step. He hangs frozen in the air, quietly processing the run of messages tearing through his head. When it finally lands that he is lost just like that, He seems to age 20 years on the spot and simply deflates. Then the airship he let out comes sweeping in behind him. 5,000 elemental armored soldiers ready at the rail, staffs leveled at Baekhyun and me and our whole group. Some are versed in wind, some in lightning, and woven together their power more than doubles, with the airship itself lending a heavy boost on top. They are the old man's core force, and they too have come too late. The commander barely finishes his opening shout before something goes wrong. He mutters that his link to the chief seems to have been severed, that the feeling has slid instead toward the hooligans across from him, his disbelief crawling toward a conclusion he cannot quite say. Baekhyun wears an easy smile and remarks to me that they still have not worked out the situation. Then he steers the carpet forward and tells the commander, low and flat, to look again, and to ask himself who his chief is now. The commander goes rigid as if struck by lightning, stammering that he would never dare. Then he wheels on his 5,000 soldiers and roars at them to open their eyes and see where their chief truly stands, to lock their skills on the real enemy at once. His men jolt awake to it in the same breath, swing their staffs around, and aim every one of them at the thin middle-aged man. The old man, already half out of his mind, watches his own core force turn their weapons on him and nearly breaks entirely. His shoulders start to shake, and then he is laughing, head snapping up, his face gone wild. He howls that they dare, that he was ambushed by a despicable villain, that they turn traitor so fast that they think he is finished. He grinds his teeth until blood spills over his lips and does not care in the slightest, then slaps his own forehead hard. A shaft of golden light bursts out of it as he screams at them all to feel the divine might of the God King. Stripped of his chief status, the old man did not become Baekhyun's vassal, but a free man instead. It means that if he can only kill Baekhyun, he could still take the Black Island back. The soldiers on the airship understand the stakes just as well, and weighing the old man's strength, they hesitate, their fresh thoughts of betrayal ebbing back down. He snorts coldly at their restraint, and the golden light pours from his forehead and wraps him whole. Under that light, his face keeps changing, fearful one moment and coldly arrogant the next, his voice shifting with it as if two different people were trading the same mouth. One voice apologizes for being useless, for letting the enemy seize the opening, and begs the God King to make his move. The other answers, ice cold, that he is a disappointment, and warns him not to let it happen again. Baekhyun and I just stare. Baekhyun mutters that the old fool's name, Noe Seo, is supposed to mean keen and sharp, and that there is nothing keen about him. Then he asks whether we drove him mad by taking his base, since his nerve is far too brittle for a man who climbed this high. My own expression has gone grim, a bad premonition rising, and I tell Baekhyun this is either a split mind or a possession. I remind him the God King's power runs on spiritual power, and that he may well have planted a possession card in every alliance of God's member ahead of time. Baekhyun startles, agreeing he had nearly forgotten, and urges me to strike before the thing finishes powering up. He throws up his right hand, golden light gathering to attack. But something is faster than he is. A round, spiky, fiery red shape plummets out of the sky and reaches the old man before Baekhyun can move. It is one of my self-destruct ants, a diamond rank 1 at that. It detonates like a clap of muffled thunder, and smoke and flames swallow the muttering old man whole. A wall of scorching air rolls out 1,000 meters and rattles the airship, our hair, and our clothes. Watching that world-ending blast, Baekhyun is dumbfounded. He asks whether I really had to go that big without a word of warning, whether a diamond-grade self-destruct ant was not a bit wasteful on such a frail-looking old man. I tell him not to underestimate the enemy, because that thing is a trump card the God King left behind, and extra caution is hardly excessive. Besides, I add, apart from the self-destruct ant, the only decent ranged option I have is the plasma ant. Its lightning would bite poorly against a man who commands wind and lightning both, so the fire of the self-destruct ant is simply the safer bet. Baekhyun throws me a thumbs up and calls me thorough, and I wave him off and keep my eyes on the thinning smoke without dropping my guard. Overkill is just insurance you only pay for once. The smoke drifts apart to reveal a bloody, tattered figure whose face is barely a face anymore, panting, staring at me with a fear he cannot explain. The blast shattered whatever composure he had left. A single unremarkable insect forced him to burn every reserve and every hidden card just to block most of it and survive. And there are dozens more of the things on my side. He stammers at the diamond rank, demanding to know how it is possible, finally grasping the real shape of his ruin. The enemies in front of him were never sneak thieves but hunters far beyond him, and in their eyes he was only ever meat on the block. Luring the tiger off the mountain and gutting his core was just a different way of cooking the same dish, and an open fight would not have changed his ending by a hair. Before he can pull himself together, an attack of braided wind and lightning slams into his ruined body and scatters it completely, leaving nothing. That strike was not ours. Baekhyun and I glance over, curious, and find it came at full strength from the elemental armored soldiers on the airship. Their commander reports at once that the villain has been dealt with. They had wavered before, but after feeling the sheer power of my self-destruct ant, they knew exactly which side to stand on. While the old man still had a breath in him, they delivered their hardest blow to prove their loyalty. Watching the old man die under the hands of the soldiers he trained himself, Baekhyun and I trade a look, oddly moved. He asks how a man ran things so badly that his own people would turn on him like this. I tell him the subordinates seem to have picked up their master's habits, so he had best be careful, and he chuckles that he knows exactly what he is doing. Just as we both think the dust has settled, golden light begins to gather in the air where the old man's body burst, slowly knitting itself into a human shape. Baekhyun and I fall silent and watch it, wary. He cannot help firing a golden laser that punches clean through the thing without harming it in the slightest, as if it existed in another dimension entirely. He tells me grimly that it is no use, that this must be the God King's projection. I agree, my own face just as heavy, because the aura is unmistakable. I did not expect him to surface even after the old man's body was destroyed. This is a different order of thing entirely from the dog-headed men, the pharaoh, and the werewolves. Baekhyun and I both sat in on the Alliance of Gods gathering once and felt this aura up close, and neither of us would ever mistake it. We test the phantom and get nowhere, so we ease back from the slowly hardening shape and simply watch. Soon the God King's projection sets fully, its features sharpening into focus, its cold eyes sweeping the ground before locking onto Baekhyun and me. It nods faintly, tells us the two of us are impressive, stronger than that waste Noacio, and offers us two choices, to bow down and pledge allegiance or to die. Hearing that flat, indifferent voice, Baekhyun and I cannot help glancing at each other. He asks under his breath what we do now that another one has gone mad. I tell him we handle the madman the usual way, since this is the dark world and no one here is going to accuse us of picking on the sick. We grumble, but our hearts settle because the God King clearly is not seen through our disguise and has no idea we are already counted among his own members. Seeing the two of us fail to cower, the god nearly loses his divine calm, a flash of anger crossing his eyes, but he masters it quickly, shakes his head, and says nothing more, charging straight at us instead at a terrifying speed. Baekhyun yelps that this god plays no fair game, attacking without a word, and I snap at him to break out the items that guard against spiritual power. My gaze sharpens as I haul out my heavy metal guitar and tear into the ear-splitting piece I have drilled for days. The shrieking, ripping wall of sound congeals into something like a blade and wraps the golden phantom, warping it out of true. Baekhyun is not about to be outdone and flings a scatter of items into the air, some snaring the phantom like ropes, others raising shields around us, weakening and protecting at once. Buried under so much interference, the phantom simply cannot hold. It is only a projection in the end, and it cannot defy heaven. The God King rages that it is all that useless Noacio's fault, that his body was destroyed before he had even descended. It left his projection like rootless duckweed with less than a tenth of its power. Unable to touch us, he gives it up, and with one last look and a strange, weighted expression, he slowly dissipates. Two utterly transparent fragments, colorless and odorless, drift down and fasten silently onto Baekhyun and me, without either of us marking them. Staring at the space where the phantom was, Baekhyun and I exchange a baffled look. He scratches his head and asks whether that was really it. Such an anticlimax. Then he puts on a straight face and mimics the god's grand tone, offering me the same two choices of allegiance or death. He complains that he thought the man was fierce, and that this was all there was to it. I find it strange too and say that logically it should not have gone like this. Thinking back on the phantom's confident face just before it vanished, something keeps nagging at me, so I check myself over carefully and find nothing wrong. Baekhyun still has a mountain of work ahead of him, since his new black island runs 21 units and holds a dense population. I stop chewing on the feeling and take my leave. I tell him I am certain the God King left a backup plan I simply have not spotted, and warn him to take his time checking so he does not walk into a trap. The god's power runs on spiritual power, I add, so a targeted sweep is his best bet. Swallowing a 21-unit island will keep him plenty busy anyway, and I am heading home first while he cleans up at his own pace. He nods, admitting he does have a headache on his hands, and promises to arrange things and then run a careful spiritual power check for the god's tricks. He thanks me for the help and says he will sort the spoils and split them between us like brothers once he is back. Then he grins and tells me I was really something back there, deliberately playing that badly to hammer the god, and that the poor charlatan must have been on the verge of collapse. I pause, wave it off a bit awkwardly, cough, and agree that of course I did it on purpose, and I tell him to decide the resources himself. Then I remember to ask him for one of those handy pocket watch items that let him carry and read the area map on the move, and tell him not to forget. He says it is nothing, tosses me his own from his storage space, and I thank him, scoop my ants back up with the spirit nurturing jar, and teleport away. Back in my own territory, it feels as if I have been gone for ages, though my time on the old man's island was never really that long. It only felt that way because so much happened, because I finally crossed paths with the God King I have been wary of for so long. That brief clash drained a good deal of my spiritual power. Depleted or not, I make myself go to the area core, pull out the map pocket watch, follow the guide Baekhyun sent me, and lay it on the map. The dark dial slowly wakes with points of light, and when I compare it against the area map, the positions, sizes, and details all line up perfectly, so I nod, satisfied. Looking closer, I see my own black island still racing toward a red light spot, less than halfway there. I cannot help a small sigh, because there were originally 5 hours of sailing left to this red instance. I had assumed a 21-unit island would be a long, grueling conquest that kept me away far longer. Instead, it took under 2.5 hours, quick enough that a famed duelist could have felled his man and come back before the wine he left behind ever cooled. Now that I am home, a mere red instance is nothing worth fretting over. I tuck the watch into my pocket and turn to go rest and rebuild my drained spiritual power. But a message stops me, sent by the black scythe hunting ant, bound to my god's token. It tells me the Alliance of Gods has passed down a spiritual power summons and that a meeting begins in 10 minutes. A meeting now? I go still, then think back on the God King's sour face, and wonder whether this is a session thrown together on the spot because of everything that just happened. Baekhyun messages me a moment later to ask whether I got the notice, and I tell him I did. He curses the charlatan for being such a nuisance when he is up to his neck in work, and wonders whether the god called an emergency meeting purely out of spite for being outplayed. I tell him it is very likely, since there is no sane reason to summon everyone this urgently, and the whole thing reeks of something abnormal. He gripes that he is sick of these so-called leaders who are useless at everything but calling meetings. He jokes that we should just rise up against the charlatan rather than break our backs for him. I warn him not to sympathize with the workers quite so hard, since we are undercover here. He laughs it off, says he is only busy and irritated, and tells me he will see me at the meeting. I shake my head, set down the manual, and wait quietly for it to start. Soon the summons lands, giving everyone 10 seconds to enter and warning that 3 missed meetings mean expulsion from the Alliance of Gods. As the count begins, I use the species contract to slip into the black scythe hunting ant I named Destruction Dragon Ant, the one bound to a god's token. Then I trigger the token to drop straight into the Grand Hall where the Alliance of Gods convenes. The hall is as magnificent as it was the first time, crowded with statues of every strange shape, each wrapped in a different colored halo. I sweep the room and count more of them than before. 120 now against the 100 at my last visit. 20 new ones. There are far fewer faces I remember, as if a good deal of turnover has churned through in only a few days. The God King's power is spreading like a virus, swelling wildly, and I sigh at it. Baekhyun and I only just killed the old man who held a 21-unit island and thought we had gutted the god's forces. Yet it barely scratched him, and his strength has climbed rather than fallen. The statue's eyes begin to stir with life, a sign everyone is arriving, so I stop scanning, spare one last glance at Baekhyun's white bear statue, and settle in to wait. 10 seconds pass. Most of the eyes across the hall brighten as spiritual consciousness takes each statue, but a handful stay lifeless, and I realize some members are actually late, which never happened last time. The prompt says 3 absences mean removal, and though no one will likely be cut today, I decide it is a fine chance to study how the God King enforces his rules. There is a good show coming. I am not the only one thinking it. The newcomers especially, still fresh and not yet scrubbed clean by the god's influence, all but glitter with quiet schadenfreude, since even as bare consciousness in stone their eyes give them away. Then the God King himself arrives late, wrapped in his golden halo, and sweeps the hall with oppressive eyes. The instant he registers the empty statues, the pressure in the room thickens until it is nearly a physical weight bearing down on everyone. His cold voice follows, telling us the Alliance has gained many newcomers and that this pleases him. Then he adds that some newcomers, and even some old members, are careless enough with the rules to openly skip his meeting, and that this displeases him. That indifferent voice drives straight into every heart in the hall, mine no exception. But because I am riding the black scythe hunting ant rather than standing here in the flesh, I am not fully swallowed by his influence, and as an observer I catch the trick of it. Feeling the faint tremor in the statue and the pressure grinding down on my ant, I understand that the statue itself is a peculiar thing, built to amplify the God King's spiritual power. Anyone lodged inside one, soaking in his presence over time, would find the god's towering invincible image burned into them like an iron brand. The Alliance, the Hall, and the statues are all one linked apparatus for exactly that brainwashing. The realization leaves me half solemn and half relieved that I never descended in my true body. A long, subtle soaking in his power could truly have dragged me into his trap, and that has nothing to do with willpower or raw strength. It is a battle fought in another dimension, the God King's own insidious spiritual power, and that is precisely where I am weakest. The god keeps pressing down on the room, After a silent beat, he says his long benevolence has apparently let everyone forget how formidable he is, and that he will use a few negative examples to teach the lesson. He lifts his right hand, extends a finger, and taps the lifeless statues one after another. A string of explosions rings out, and each statue he touches loses its left arm at the shoulder. The stones snapping off and roll into the floor as rubble. Reactions vary across the hall, some members plainly indifferent, as if a few broken meeting statues mean nothing and the god is all bark. Many of the older members go solemn instead, eyeing the careless newcomers with something close to pity for their ignorance. Then the God King lays out the price. 1 missed meeting costs an arm, 2 missed meetings cost all 4 limbs, and a third means removal from the alliance. Golden light lances from his hand into every indifferent newcomer statue, and leaves a raw wound on the stone. In the same instant, each of those newcomers feels a piercing, entirely real pain, as if the injury landed not on the statue, but on their living flesh. An absurd fear blooms in all of them at once. The thought that a damaged statue might mean a damaged body to match. An arm for 1 absence and 4 limbs for 2 would be monstrous, and removal for a third might mean their very lives. Shaken to the bone, not one of them dares show the god disrespect any longer, and proud chiefs though they are, they all know what matters. I had not been rubbernecking a moment ago, but listening calmly, so the god's warning light never touched me, and now I feel a flicker of genuine regret. Had I known, I would have made a show of contempt on purpose just to test the link between statue and body. Now that I sit here unmarked, moving around on my own would only draw eyes. Still chewing on it, I sneak a look at Baekhyun's white bear statue and find a fresh scratch on its forehead. Its eyes hold 3 parts calm, 3 parts daydreaming, 3 parts flippancy, and 1 part pure smugness. It strikes me as odd until I remember exactly whose character this is. I decide that by some fluke Baekhyun caught a hit, and that I will simply ask him afterward whether the body bleeds when the statue is struck. That settles me, and I wait. Satisfied that the whole hall has turned serious and respectful, the God King nods and goes on, saying this emergency session was called for an unexpected matter. He ran into 2 thugs, he tells them, who not only ambushed and killed a high-ranking alliance member, Noe Seo, but showed him grave disrespect. It is a crime 100 deaths could not atone for, so he is issuing a full alliance-wanted order on the pair of them. The members erupt into shocked murmurs the moment he says it, marveling that the cunning, powerful old man is dead and that his killers must be strong. They agree in the next breath that anyone marked by the God King is as good as buried. Listening to it, Baekhyun and I fight not to look at each other, and the same strange thought squirms in both our chests. Am I holding a meeting to hunt myself? We keep our faces flat, Baekhyun most of all, terrified of laughing out loud and drawing suspicion, and we let the discussion wash over us a while longer. Then a statue shaped like a white-haired old man, seated up in the purple tier, speaks, saying he has a few questions he hopes the God King will clarify. The sight of someone questioning the god, and a strong one from the upper purple tier at that, drops the noisy hall into a silence so complete a pin could be heard. The god holds his imposing pose, pauses, and grants a single cold word, telling him to speak. The white-haired old man does not dare put on any airs and thanks the god quickly for indulging him. He says he does not quite understand how Noe Seo could be beaten so easily by only 2 people. Noe Seo was a veteran member who received so much of the god's cultivation and was hardly weak on his own, let alone armed with the god's trump card. He would have done better to keep his mouth shut. The moment Noe Seo's death comes up, the god flies into a fury and spits his answer out in a rapid, uncharacteristic tumble. He snarls that the idiot Noe Seo was the problem. He always took the man for cautious and clever, while most of the others were reckless, which is why he poured such care into cultivating him. Then he corrects himself bitterly, that Noe Seo was never cautious and clever but timid, cowardly, and stupid. The fool let the enemy ambush his area core and lose the whole island without spilling a drop of blood. Even that could have been salvaged with the trump card the god bestowed. He rages, but the fool went further still and let the god possess him in full view of the enemy. During the possession, he could shrug off ordinary diamond rank damage. Yet those 2 happened to hold a diamond rank trump card of their own. With the betrayal of Noe Seo's own men, they shattered his body outright, leaving the god's spirit like rootless duckweed with a bare 10th of its strength. Listening to the tirade, I piece it together and understand that the god's possession needs a living body beneath it to reach full power. It is a good thing I never waited for the transformation to finish and blew the body apart first, because even a win would have come far harder otherwise. And the god has plainly misjudged my self-destruct ant, taking it for my trump card when it is only a routine tool. It is one I cannot spend carelessly but hardly a rarity, one I can even stack in numbers for far heavier damage. Being underestimated is a gift, and I may find a way to turn it. It is no wonder he misjudged us, since Baekhyun and I never showed much beyond diamond rank in that fight. The lone exception was the single diamond grade self-destruct ant I detonated, and the god was not watching the old man's feed in real time. I relax and keep listening in silence, while Baekhyun leans in so intently he looks ready to pull out a notebook and take notes. The white-haired old man, watching the furious god, shivers inwardly, knowing full well he has blundered onto a raw nerve. And were he not merely wearing a statue, he would be drenched in sweat. He hurries to patch it, begging the god to calm his anger and insisting that even the wisest of gods can be deceived. It was only the god's boundless generosity and kindness toward his people, he says, that let the idiot fool him. Then he offers to shoulder the god's burden and asks how he should go about finding the two hooligans. Mollified, the golden phantom settles back into its usual composed indifference and answers lightly. He says he set his own spirit clone to self-destruct and pinned a mental imprint on the two thugs. By his sensing, their positions sit extremely far apart, not in the same area at all. To coordinate across that kind of distance at this stage, he reasons, they must wield powerful spatial tools. The imprint cannot be removed by anyone but him, so they may run to the ends of the earth and still never slip his grasp. My chest tightens at that. He has already seen through the fact that Baekhyun and I carry spatial tools. As I suspected, it is a mental power, a mental imprint, which sounds like nothing more than a marking ability. It should not be nearly as impossible to peel off as the god claims, and I make a note to ask Baekhyun whether he has a method. Then a second thought surfaces, that perhaps I do not need to remove it just yet at all. While I am still turning it over, the god goes on, saying the vortex of the dark world is interfering and making it hard to cross realms freely. In the past, he adds, he might have let the two thugs breathe a while longer. But he is a being destined to become the god of all gods, he declares, blessed with towering fortune. He has detected that two of his members happen to sit in the very same areas as the two hooligans. With that, his gaze slides to the black scythe hunting ant I am wearing, and the white bear that holds Baekhyun, and in a light tone he asks the two of us our names. Every member in the hall turns to look, and being singled out and stared at by so many eyes at once, leaves Baekhyun and me frozen for a beat. I recover faster and tell the god my name is Destruction Dragon Ant. Baekhyun gapes at my ant in disbelief, unable to fathom how I readied myself to hand out such an edgelord name so casually. Having prepared nothing himself, he was about to blurt White Bear when I steered him wrong, so he stammers instead that his name is Death White Bear. The moment it leaves him, Baekhyun drowns in regret. The hundreds of eyes fixed on him leave him sitting on pins, and if he were not in a bodiless state, he could probably have dug out a 3-room apartment with his toes. But the God King does not hear anything childish in our names at all, finding them rather imposing instead, and he studies the two statues with a touch of approval. This works? How does a name that clumsy come off as impressive? Baekhyun doubts his whole life, glancing from my composed statue to the pleased god, and then it clicks for him. He reasons that the ant I inhabit is a diamond rank existence, and that the substitute prop he uses reflects his own diamond rank strength. Diamond rank is still fiercely coveted right now, so with power like that behind it, even calling himself Answer Sheet Man would ring imposing. On top of that, a being who titles himself God King must run a generous tolerance for the theatrical. The thought straightens Baekhyun's spine, and not only does his shame evaporate, but he tips over into self-righteousness. I catch all the flickering across his eyes without the faintest idea what strange thing is rattling around that little head of his. The god continues, saying he noticed us both last time, Destruction Dragon Ant and Death White Bear. The Destruction Dragon Ant had already reached diamond rank at the previous meeting, he notes, while the Death White Bear was only platinum then and has now broken through to diamond as well. Both of us, he says, are among the finest newcomers of late. I am about to answer with something gracious, that the god flatters us too much. Then I remember I am at present nothing but an ant, a diamond rank ant but an ant all the same. Speaking so elegantly would ring false, so I fall back on the plain logic of my ant form and simply thank the god. Baekhyun catches up a beat behind, grinning like a fool and announcing that he is very strong. The god frowns a little at how stiff and clumsy we sound, then reconsiders. After all, we are transformation type ability users, whose bodies have gone fully over to ant and white bear, with no trace of the human left. Strong and passively intelligent as we are, the peculiar emotional intelligence and logic of a human have nearly bled out of us. Transformation types climb in power quickly but pay for it by gradually shedding their humanity. The reasoning settles his mood, and he decides transformation types are easier to brainwash and steer than ordinary humans. My clumsy speech reads in his eyes as honest, artless simplicity, and even the grotesque statues turn pleasant to him. He grows more pleased with us by the moment, certain we are perfect instruments heaven itself dropped into his lap. Smiling, the god says we surely heard what he raised earlier, that we happen to sit in the areas of those two thugs. He means to entrust the task of clearing them out to us. Both of us have reached diamond rank, he points out, while the thugs are merely weak things propped up by borrowed diamond rank trump cards, so it should be a stroll in the park. Prepared as we were, hearing him actually hand us the job leaves Baekhyun and me swimming in mixed feelings. Now it really is a case of hunting myself. I ponder a moment, then look at the god with feigned difficulty and tell him I just fought someone and took an injury. Baekhyun follows my lead like a seasoned actor, wailing that he is in the same sorry state. Seeing us dither, the god goes quiet, because there is no missing that we are doing it on purpose, and to wring out some benefit at that. He had assumed I would simply agree, and my sudden show of weakness plainly irritates him. I can all but hear him cursing us inwardly as damned ants and beasts who have forgotten human wisdom yet somehow sharpen human greed. Knowing he cannot reason with transformation types whose minds have gone murky, he has no lever of threat to pull. Eager to recover his composure, he relents, telling us he is not asking us to kill the thugs this instant. He will first send resource support to mend our injuries and bestow a spiritual power entity like the one Noisio carried. As long as we stay obedient and never let him possess us in front of an enemy, he promises, we will take them down with ease. That holds even if the two thugs break through to diamond rank in the coming days. Goal reached, Baekhyun and I agree readily. The god breathes out, relieved to finally land his aim, and sweeps the hall, telling the newcomers to stay while the old members go. He tells the Destruction Dragon Ant and the Death White Bear that he will pass along the thugs' tracking incantation shortly, and that we are to depart at once. The resources will come straight to us through the god's token once the meeting ends. So the token can transmit items too. Convenient since it means no swapping materials over the trade channel and no exposing our names. I thank the god and leave the hall with Baekhyun and the old members, and only the newcomers remain behind to be worked over. Alone with the newcomers, the god king grinds his spiritual power into them and turns a colder calculation over in his mind. High potential ability users tend toward caution, he thinks. And even after killing an alliance member, they will not touch the god's token, exactly as the pair who killed Noisio never did. Which means some low potential members are bound to be swallowed by rival chiefs, the god's token leaking away, and the fat sheep he raised at such cost falling into other hands for nothing. Better, he decides, to quietly reclaim all their spiritual power and resources in advance, so long as it is done subtly. Back at my shelter, I have barely stretched the stiffness out of my limbs when a message comes from Destruction Dragon Ant. It received the tracking incantation from the god, a line about divine light shining everywhere so that nothing can hide. I do not recite it aloud. Instead, I tell the ant to picture the incantation directly with its spiritual power. It obeys at once from its spot beside me, and within a few seconds a faint golden glow rises off its body. A breath later, my shoulder goes warm, and when I lift my clothes there is a small triangular mark there, faintly aglow. Through my bond with Destruction Dragon Ant, I can tell it truly can fix my rough location straight off the incantation. So this is the spiritual power mark the god mentioned. I rub at it and only manage to redden the skin, so I stop and stroke my chin, thinking it over. Better not to peel it off yet and tip the god off. Still, I need to learn how to remove it so I can be rid of it the instant I choose and never be caught flat-footed. Otherwise the thing simply feels wrong. So I decide to wait and see whether Baekhyun has an answer. I am about to reach him when Destruction Dragon Ant flares gold again, brighter than before, and a golden ring materializes out of the air above its head. The aura is familiar, and it lands at once. The brainwashing session across the way is ended, and this must be the storage ring holding the resources the god promised. Resources pledged in front of that many members can hardly come out stingy, I think, and I hope for a decent haul. Even a thin one gained by fooling the god beats nothing at all. Pure found money either way. Curious, I plucked the golden ring from the air, a grand thing shedding golden light and worked with fine carvings, and pushed my spiritual power inside to take stock of what it holds. Then I freeze, eyes going wide, my spiritual power locked hard onto the contents, because the god gave far too much. The stores run silver rank at the very floor, with a heavy share of gold and platinum and even a scattering of diamond rank. There is nothing among them that grows on its own, but they are all finished goods, and in sheer volume they blow past anything I expected. I turn the ring over in my hand, delighted, and realize its space runs a full 1,000 square meters, 5 times the one I borrowed off Baekhyun. The ring by itself is beyond price. The resources inside are enough to raise 100 diamond-grade black scythe hunting ants, which is as good as devouring 10 black islands in one swallow. I rub the thing and sigh, a little wistful that the god is genuinely generous. If only he were not bent on brainwashing me, and if only feeding on humans were not so evil that it may come for me next. The two of us might even have been friends. Almost friends. A pity his hobby is eating people. I shake it off with a smile, because I know exactly why the god is so open-handed. In his eyes, Baekhyun and I fused with the god's token, which means he has us boxed in. Piling resources on me is like stewing meat in his own pot, where it only ever rots to his benefit and costs him nothing. If he ever learned that Baekhyun and I played him instead, his composure would blow apart on the spot. I move to slip the ring onto my hand, then remember the god's strange abilities and stop, deciding to let Baekhyun vet it with his tools first before I risk wearing it. Then I head to the warehouse and empty every last resource out of it. While I unload, I get Baekhyun on the line and ask whether his share of the god's resources came through. He crows that it did, all but shouting that we are rich and that he never expected the charlatan to be so generous. We have to find a way to fleece the man for more, he says, since he overflows with wealth, and even the scraps sliding off his fingernails add up to a fortune. I agree he handed over a great deal, and I tell Baekhyun it likely ties back to his ability. A spiritual power improves through complicated means rather than resources alone, so the god has almost certainly hoarded mountains of material he barely touches. I say that if we take him down, we probably never worry about resources again. The picture lights Baekhyun up, blood surging, and he declares we absolutely must bring the charlatan down and let no one else cut in on the haul. I chuckle and tell him not to get ahead of himself, that the God King is no easy mark. Most people who go at him end up as his food, so we cannot be careless either. We need to gather intelligence from every angle, prepare tools and methods built specifically for him, and only then land a killing blow. At the very least, we wait until the vortex settles before we start scheming, since there is no rush. Then I ask him to look my storage ring over for any hidden tricks. He tells me there is one, a spiritual restriction laid on the ring that keeps working on whoever wears it, steadily warming their affinity for the charlatan. Of course there is. These spiritual power manipulators are a disgusting breed, leaning on the stealth of their powers to slip their fingers in wherever they please. I shake my head and tell him to forget it, that it is not serious enough to matter and we simply will not wear the ring. To avoid tipping the god off, we leave the restriction in place until after we have dealt with him. Baekhyun agrees he sees it the same way, then asks how we mean to handle the god's little order that we hunt ourselves. Slacking off entirely will not do, I tell him, since it would only breed suspicion, and I ask whether he has tools that can stage a convincing show. In a few days, we will fake our own deaths at our own hands and scrub off the mark. If we get away with it, we stay under cover and keep reaping the god's generosity. If we do not, then revealing everything is fine too. He has plenty of such tools, he says, though they are his most prized things, the treasures that fill his king's treasury, and that he almost never has cause to use. He will dig them out, learn their handling, and rehearse before we teach the charlatan his lesson. I tell him I am leaving it to him. It really is convenient having Baekhyun around, since the man knows far too much, and between him and 09, I have never once been short on tools. That reminds me that 09's new mech should be nearly done, and that with everything being rebuilt, there is a resource crunch coming. Since the god's hall is thick with metals and ores, I decide to send those to her first. That way 09 can free up her hands and open a few more production lines for me. Thinking it through, I fire a transfer request straight over to her. A white hexagram array blooms in front of me, and I step through it with the ease of long practice, landing the next second inside a steel factory thick with robots. Looking up, I find 09 in a gray work uniform with her hair tied back, the dark circles under her eyes deep and her face pale. There is no way to tell how many days she has gone without stopping. Yet her eyes are startlingly bright and clear, showing not a trace of fatigue. I frown and ask her, concerned, how many days it has been since she rested and why the circles have gotten so bad. She just shakes her head, easy about it, and says only 3 days. Xiong'a gave her a stack of items to top up her energy, and with them she could push several more days without trouble. It costs her a little in her skin, she admits, but that is only the surface and nothing that matters. A crackle of current sounds, and a tracked robot slides up and breaks in front of me. Its abdominal cavity opens so a mechanical arm can lift out. 2 cups of tea hand, one each to 09 and me, and roll smartly away. I recognize the brew as Xiong'a's own World Tree tea leaves and let out a breath, smiling, telling 09 the leaves really are effective for lifting energy. But that sleep is still not optional. Humans have limits, I remind her, and she is not a robot, so she still has to answer to her own biology. 09 lowers her head slightly and murmurs the word robot, then says she understands me. Understand what? Before I can ask, she tells me Galaxy is finished and to come see her mech, then turns and walks off. I look where she is heading and find something over 60 meters tall standing there under a black cloth. Galaxy. Done at last. By the original plan, it should have been finished far sooner, but one unexpected snag after another dragged it out a full week. Now that it is complete, I am honestly curious what kind of power it holds, that it could give a talent like 09 such a prolonged headache, and swallow so many resources. I follow her over. At the cloth, she says softly to open. 10 mechanical birds with bionic wings sweep in, hook their claws into the fabric, and haul it aside to bear the giant mech beneath. I look up. It is silver, bright silver, throwing dazzling flashes back at the ceiling lights. The 60-meter frame looks nothing like a lumbering thing, all streamlined, ergonomic lines that read as lean and natural. Like the old sky pillar before it, Galaxy carries a greatsword and a huge sniper rifle across its back. Where it differs is the palms, each set with 2 deep openable ports. They are so dark that a single glance makes my heart pound, as if they cradle a power that could end my life. Catching where my gaze is snagged, 09 explains quietly that she worked energy conversion and compression into the palms and seated 2 compressed energy cannons there. Unlike the ordinary kind, these 2 reach well up into diamond rank strength, and because she broke through to diamond rank herself, she says her fusion with the mechanical heart deepened, and Galaxy's intelligence climbed with it. With a real measure of artificial intelligence, the machine can now fight alongside her and take a heavy load off her shoulders. I nod along as she talks. The old Sky Pillar's great flaw was that it drank far too much of 09's energy to sustain a long fight, though its raw power was all but unbeatable among platinum rank beings. I never guessed that her climb in rank and the mechanical heart's evolution would hand the machine genuine artificial intelligence. With that, the mech's main weakness is simply gone, and beyond its heavy appetite for energy, it has no other soft spot left. If 09 says the 2 cannons carry high diamond rank power, then they do, because she is nothing if not rigorous about her numbers, and no wonder I felt such dread standing near them. I ask 09 whether there is still a seat for me inside Galaxy. She says of course, and without looking at me, she leads me straight in and sits me down. She lets me feel what it is to pilot the thing, and puts its attack strength through a demonstration before finally handing me back out. I have not shaken off the aftershock of the test. I look at the greatsword on Galaxy's back with real surprise, because it just split a slab of diamond rank alloy wide open as if it were nothing. To measure against it, I summon my own diamond-grade black scythe hunting ant. Its giant mandibles bite at 100 times their own force, gnawing and gnawing with everything they have, before they barely tear the same alloy apart. There is no comparison. My black scythe hunting ant has held diamond rank a good while, its realm stable, wringing out the full strength of its stage, and it still falls miles short of Galaxy. And the greatsword is only one of the mech's most basic tricks, with the sniper rifle and the 2 energy cannons waiting behind it as heavier instruments of slaughter. Galaxy hit the very peak of diamond rank the instant it broke through. No wonder 09 sweated so long over it, since a mech that debuts at its ceiling would be strange if it came easy. The thought leaves me a little wistful, because next to a talent like 09 there really is a gap. But I do not sell myself short. My ants keep a far wider spread of methods, though I sit only in early diamond rank now, with some species not yet broken through. In a true fight, I might not lose to her at all. I still have real room left to climb inside diamond rank, while 09 can only push higher after another breakthrough. My cursed need to win. 09 is my teammate, and the stronger she grows, the better for me. So what am I doing measuring myself against her? I shake it off with a smile and look at her, then ask, by the way, about Will, since I have not seen him in ages, and wonder what has been keeping him. 09 pauses, lowers her head in thought, and admits she has been so buried in her research and in building Galaxy. Now that she thinks of it, it truly has been a while since she last saw Will either. Hearing that only makes the whole thing sit stranger with me. Will and 09 are old teammates from the start. Back when they first met, everyone had only just landed in the Dark World, resources brutally scarce. Will chose to funnel what little there was to 09, willing to leave his own upgrades untouched so she could raise her shelter first. It says everything about how deep the bond between them runs. So I frown. Well, not reaching out to me is one thing, but going this many days without a word to 09 means he has almost certainly run into some kind of trouble. I tell her I will ask him, and that maybe Will has just been shut away pushing for a breakthrough of his own, no different from Cheongha. Then I take my leave of 09 and teleport back to my shelter. The moment I am home, I send Will a private message. I ask whether he has hit any difficulties lately, whether he needs a hand, mentioning that I have nothing on my own plate right now. I wait a full 10 minutes. Then my manual chimes, and seeing that it is Will who answered eases the knot in my chest, since a reply at all means nothing has gone badly wrong. He tells me not to worry, that the enemies he has run into recently were not strong. His Black Island has climbed to 20 units, so there is no immediate danger, and if he ever needs help, he will reach out. Then he trades me the corpse of a diamond rank monster he says he hunted lately, a giant thing shaped like a crow, and tells me it should be of use. I look it over and confirm it is genuinely diamond rank, which loosens my shoulders a little more. Will's Island reaching 20 units means his development has not been choked, and a man who can hand out diamond rank corpses is clearly not starved for resources. Things must be fine, and I simply overthought it. Still, a diamond rank corpse is far too valuable to just pocket. I replied that the corpse would help the ability he is cultivating just as much, and that I am not short on resources at the moment. I will take it to Wang Heon to break down samples, pull some gene fragments, and hunt for substances that can push my ants to evolve. Then I will hand the rest straight back to him. He tells me he is in no hurry to use it and to trade it over once I am done. With that, I carry the crow-shaped corpse off to Wang Heon's laboratory, turning it over in my head as I go. I just came into a pile of resources from the god, and Baekhyun split more my way after we killed the old man. I will pick out whatever suits Will best and send it along with the corpse when it goes back. Meanwhile, Will, only just finished speaking with me, is nowhere near as calm as he let on. His pupils have gone blood red, and his face is grim as he sits in a great hall done up in raw, brutal decor. Every surface is hung with animal hides and teeth, the whole place reeking of blood. He sets down his manual, draws a slow breath, and looks at a burly man in animal hide half kneeling before him, asking in a low voice how the interrogation went. The burly man, called Code, flinches and reports at once that everything was wrung out of the captive. The captive said the organization spans 9 major areas, he tells Will. In their own area, there is a supervisor sent from the 3rd area, holed up in the southeast as the chief of a 25-unit Black Island. The man carries a code name within the organization. 01. Will mutters the words back to himself. 01, 3rd area, the organization, his eyes going redder with each one. Code's bones all but rattle under the dreadful pressure rolling off him, and the man sweats through his hides in terror of Will's wrath, though Will, furious as he is, has not lost his reason. He says it is right, all of it right, that it is the organization, and that he never expected their tentacles to reach into his own area. He tells Code to go for now and to keep the captive alive, and Code hauls his half-numb legs out of the hall as fast as they will carry him. Will steadies himself, breathes out something foul, and murmurs to 11 that after all this time he has finally turned up word of the organization. They have clearly adapted to the rules of the dark world and are thriving, he says to himself. If even his area holds their tentacles, and 01 is here on top of it, the proud disciple of the devil instructor who bullied and ground them down no less than anyone back then. A pity the devil instructor is nowhere in sight, he adds, with no way to know whether the man is dead or simply somewhere else. Will pushes up his sleeve to bear the pink pig watch he has not shown in a long while, and sinks into thought. He promised, he says, to protect his sister and be a brother worth having. But 09 is strong now, far stronger than he is, with no shortage of powerful companions of her own, and she does not need his protection at all. Just this once, he will let himself be willful and do the thing he wants to do. He takes one last look at the watch, rises and goes to his area core, turning it deliberately southeast, straight towards 01's giant black island. He murmurs to 11 not to worry, that he is not the stubborn man he once was, and knows what matters. He will try this himself first, and only lean on his teammates if it fails. Just let him try it himself first. High above the hall, a pair of blood-red axes glint with a cold edge. A soft breeze slides past them and draws out a low hum, as if the blades themselves are thirsting for blood. I have no idea what Will is walking into. Once Wang Hyun hands me the gene fragments and the biological extract, I quickly trade over the resources I set aside, along with the diamond rank corpse. As Will accepts them, I let out a breath, only to frown a beat later as something finally snags. That message Will sent me did not read like him at all. The man usually says as little as possible, a single line and done. So why would he keep hammering on how safe he is when it lands less like reassurance and more like someone deliberately explaining himself or papering something over? I hesitate, half inclined to press him again. After a long moment, my brow smooths and I let the idea go. If Will is not saying it, then he has his reasons, and knowing his character, he understands what matters and will not touch anything he is not sure of. I need to trust my teammate. Close as we are, respecting each person's own decisions and choices is exactly the attitude a teammate owes. And once I settle into that, my mood lifts a little. I pull out the pocket watch I got from Baekhyun and look it over. In another hour, I will reach this red instance, and the other 3-unit Black Island should arrive around the same time. Swallowing the 2 of them together will be just enough to upgrade my shelter. 3 hours pass, and by the time the dust settles, I have swallowed the red instance whole and taken in the Black Island that came to pledge itself to me. My own Black Island jumps straight to 31 units, which is exactly the threshold I need to push my shelter up to level 7. Gathering the first 30 units was no small ordeal, so I let out a long breath, pick up the manual, and select the upgrade. The wizard tower at the heart of my shelter begins to drown in a thick black mist, and I stand beneath it with real anticipation. The wizard tower feeds on the power of upgrade and transformation. When it last climbed to a level 6 shelter, its growth progress leapt a full 30% to 61, only 39 short of the next tier. A level 7 upgrade should carry more force, and it may well drive the progress clean to 100%. The levitation inscription, the invisibility inscription, and the space rune that the 3-floor tower already gave me have all proven useful, and I cannot help wondering what a 4th floor will unlock. What nags at me is Mowal, whose study of the runes has felt slow lately. The last time I asked, she only told me she was on the verge of grasping it, and I have no idea where she stands now. I have a little time on my hands, so I set off for her ant nest to check on her myself. Now that I think about it, I have not seen Mowal in a long while, And the same goes for Leisure Cloud, Rock Spirit, Light Healing, and Mars. Lately, I have been consumed by expansion, and every push means leading Swift Shadow out to the front lines to command the fighting. The rest of the queens hold their own posts, cultivating ants or handling their assigned tasks, quietly feeding the growth of my territory. I never see them on the battlefield, yet the only reason I can keep showing up on the front with overwhelming force is the work they never stop doing. As that thought settles, something in me stirs, my mind clears, and I sink my consciousness into the species contract, drinking in the faint tides of emotion flowing off my ants. When I pull back and take stock of my own body, I am caught off guard by a fresh insight into power, even though I only broke through to Tier 2 a short while ago. It turns out the growth of power and the comprehension of power do not follow each other in strict order. It is a pleasant surprise, and my mood lifts along with my pace. Soon I reach the ant nest and find Moel at once. She sits surrounded by scattered carving knives, beast cores, and stones, with a pile of finished and half-finished runes off to one side, each of them giving off a faint glow. Moel herself is bent low over a thick black-covered tome, turning the pages with her forelegs like the most diligent scholar in the world. She is so absorbed that she does not notice me even after I have walked right up to her. I do not say a word to break her concentration. Only after she finishes 3 pages and stops does she catch sight of me standing beside her with a smile. Moel sets the book down at once and hurries over, apologizing for having been so rude as to miss my arrival. I shake my head gently, point at the tome in front of her, and ask where she found it. She tells me she took it from a bookshelf on the 3rd floor mezzanine of the Wizard Tower, without informing me first, and she asks my forgiveness. I tell her there is nothing to forgive. I told her long ago to research rune crafting to her heart's content, to take whatever she needs from the tower and simply ask Takmungyil for any resources she lacks. I stroke her small head to comfort her, then ask how her progress with the wizard inheritance has been coming along. Moel narrows her eyes, thoroughly enjoying the petting. Then she walks aside, plucks 3 runes with differently shaped lines out of the pile, and hands them to me. She has taken the first steps, she says, in mastering the basic crafting methods for the levitation inscription, the invisibility inscription, and the space rune. She adds that she is slow-witted and it will take her far more time to reach the intermediate runes. I look at her with genuine surprise. The wizard inheritance is obscure and hard to swallow, demanding extreme learning ability, sharp concentration, and long stretches of time. When I last checked, Moel had only learned to craft the invisibility inscription, yet in half a month she has picked up the other 2 and mastered all 3 basic methods. That is far beyond anything I expected. I take the runes she offers me and feel the faint power humming off them. If a creature who masters 3 kinds of runes this fast counts as slow-witted, I tell her, everyone else may as well die of shame. Having her learn the wizard inheritance was one of the most correct calls I have ever made. After that flash of excitement, I turn the 3 runes over in my hand with real curiosity. I tell her I already know the invisibility inscription well, since I have had some sentry ants use it to excellent effect, but I ask what the levitation and space runes are actually good for. Moel explains that the tower's own floating ability comes from a levitation inscription, though the one embedded in the tower is an advanced inscription, which is the only reason it can lift something so massive. She can only craft ordinary basic versions for now, and lifting the whole tower with those would take thousands of them, which is simply impossible. A basic levitation inscription, however, can be worked into tools that grant a measure of flight to ants without wings, and even to my vassals. Paired with propulsion-based mechanical tools, its use is spread wide, if my vassals dig into the applications. I nod along, already picturing a dozen uses. 09 can build machines that do something similar, but pure machinery burns an enormous amount of energy to stay aloft. Fold levitation inscriptions into her designs, and both endurance and performance should take a real leap. A rune used alone has limited reach. What makes it dangerous is marrying it to other items and tools until it can do almost anything. Satisfied, I ask about the space rune and whether it can be used to make storage rings. Moel nods gently and says it can, though a basic space rune yields a ring with only 1 cubic meter of room inside. I nod slightly. 1 cubic meter may not sound like much, but it holds a respectable amount of supplies, and for an ordinary survivor it is already a wonderfully convenient thing. I am about to praise her when she keeps going, telling me the space rune has one more common use, laying down teleportation arrays. A teleportation array from a basic space rune. I stare at her, thrown. In my head, a teleportation array has always been a high-end, imposing marvel. The wizard tower carries one, but that is an advanced rune baked into the tower itself, and I had assumed only advanced space runes could raise such a thing. That a basic one can do it lands completely outside my expectations. Moel confirms it, saying an array is not hard to build and a basic space rune is enough. The catch is that a basic array can only teleport within a 10-kilometer radius, and reaching farther demands more advanced runes. 10 kilometers strikes me as a little short. Inside my territory, I already have plenty of ways to cross that distance, and an array needs resources both to build and to maintain. A 10-kilometer hop is a genuine drawback. Still, I decide to set up one array in the underground city that teleports straight to the surface, and to turn the other space runes into storage rings for now. I ask Moel to spare some time in the coming days to make more of them. Storage rings are absurdly valuable, and their price on the market has never come down. Even a ring with a single cubic meter of space fetches a fine sum. For Moel, who has already grasped the art of rune crafting, churning out more to sell is no trouble at all. I am starved for resources right now, desperate to open fresh streams of income. She agrees readily, insisting it is exactly the kind of work she should be doing. I nod and tell her I have just upgraded the shelter, so if all goes well, the wizard tower should reach a 4th floor. At that point, new runes will unlock, and I will have to trouble her to study them all over again. That only delights her more, and she swears it is no trouble, that she finds the research genuinely fascinating and loves it, thanking me over and over. Through the species contract, I feel her joy and let out a small breath of relief. My ants are my subordinates, and in theory I could order them to do anything I please. But I have always tried to place each of them where their talents and their appetites line up. Self-destruct ants love their explosions, hovering ants love drifting lazily through the sky, and sentry ants love the hunt of scouting. So I leave the runes to Moel, telling her to send her kin to Tokmungyil for anything she runs short of, and she thanks me and promises to work hard at the wizard inheritance. As I go, she is already gnawing at that great black manual again like the most studious scholar alive. Time slips by and the shelter upgrade is almost complete. I feel it draw near and walk quickly back toward the wizard tower, hoping the new runes are as powerful and as valuable as a space rune. The more valuable, the better. Halfway there, I slow, snagged by a stray thought. Moel just said a basic teleportation array reaches only 10 kilometers, and even my wizard tower's advanced space rune array can teleport nothing beyond the bounds of my own Black Island. Set against that, the mutual aid contract Xiongha once brought out is genuinely terrifying, since it managed cross-regional teleportation. What kind of power pulls off a feat like that? The longer I chew on it, the stranger it feels. As my strength keeps climbing, my sense of scale widens with it, and what I only dimly registered back then I now feel in my bones. Gold rank, it claimed. Not a chance. Even a diamond rank item, even a legendary one, comes nowhere close. That contract is hiding a secret, and once I am strong enough, I mean to find Xiongha, get my hands on it, and take it apart. A roar rolls down out of the sky, breaking my train of thought. I look up to find the black mist around the wizard tower fully dispersed, and the tower standing taller than before. I count the levels, and it has already grown to 4 stories. Relief loosens my chest. No accidents this time, and thank goodness, because if it had come up just short on growth progress, I would have been scrambling to find things to feed it. I rise into the air and fly toward the tower, letting a golden light flare in my right eye as I fix my gaze on it. The reading that surfaces tells me the wizard tower has become a platinum rank structure. Still growable, still bound to me. All is but appearance, it says. Only truth is eternal. It can serve as a shelter, and whoever binds it becomes its master and receives the wizard inheritance, with each upgrade unlocking new floors and new inherited knowledge. Its floors now number 4, and its unlocked abilities are the levitation inscription, the invisibility inscription, the space rune, and a new one, the amplification rune. The tower's grade has jumped from gold rank to platinum, and it has handed me an amplification rune whose exact function I do not yet know. From the name alone, though, it should do something like amplify damage, and if that is truly the case, then its boost to combat power is nothing small. The thought puts a spark in me. I reach out through the species contract and tell Moel the tower has upgraded and unlocked the amplification rune. I ask her to study it and produce a finished piece, as fast as she can so I can see what it does. She answers at once that she will, adding that with 3 runes worth of experience her grasp of rune crafting has deepened further, so it should not take long. I give her my approval and leave it in her hands. I turn to the manual again. The shelter has reached level 7, which should unlock another function, and the last one it gave me was Super Leap, the trick that let me devour Black Island after Black Island. I take a deep breath, hoping this one is just as useful, and prepare to check. Before I can, a tremor runs through my communication ant. I pause and connect. It is a report on the growth fluid. The voice tells me the fluid extracted from the diamond rank monsters we killed last time is ready, enough to carry 2 ants into diamond rank. On top of that, they have recently harvested a batch of more powerful biological genes and cultivated an entirely new species of ant. New ants. My pupils blow wide. I do not even bother to cut the communication ant off before a gust kicks up under my feet, and I rush straight for the biological laboratory. Against the pull of a brand new species, watching some post-upgrade function can wait. It takes me a single minute to arrive at Wang Heon's desk. He wastes no words when he sees me, only rises and walks toward the cultivation room inside the lab, pressing 2 bottles of translucent liquid into my hands as he goes. Each bottle, he says, is growth fluid that can lift 1 platinum rank ant to diamond rank. I thank him for the hard work, take the fluid carefully, and tuck it into my storage ring before following him in. The moment I step into the cultivation room, my eyes are pulled to the handful of ants resting in the culture dish. They are only the size of a thumb, shaped like ordinary ants, but their color stops me cold. It is not red, not black, not brown, none of the usual colors at all. They are completely clear, like pure water, so transparent that I can see the blood moving inside them in the shape of their organs straight through their exoskeletons. Transparent ants. This is something else entirely. I had let myself imagine what Wang Hian's new species might look like on the way over, and not once did a see-through ant cross my mind. They look less like anything born of nature and more like some fantastical invention. I ask Wang Hian whether these are the new ants he cultivated and what abilities they carry. He pushes his glasses up and says he cannot really explain it in words, that I had better see for myself, and quickly. Then he adds that he has another project to oversee and will head off if I do not need him. I smile and tell him to go, but I catch the dark circles under his eyes and warn him not to bury himself entirely in work, because his body matters too. He is my most capable general, I tell him, and with the crowd of people in the territory now, there is no one who can fill his seat. If he falls ill, I will be in real trouble. I have already told Tokmungyal to grant him the highest clearance to the territory's warehouse. I want him to take time to find whatever is good for his health and use plenty of it. His retreating figure pauses a beat, and he says only that it is his duty and that he will. Then he walks off toward his workstation. I watch him go and shake my head, helpless. One after another, why are they all such workaholics? If he grinds his body to ruin, where am I supposed to find a biologist half as reliable? I decide to set his communication ant to watch him, and if he keeps at this brutal pace and refuses to draw resources for his health, I will simply order him to. My communication ants are not only for talking, every one of them is tamed and bound to the species contract. I would rather not lean on them for this, but quietly watching over him on my order is well within what they can do. I turn back to the transparent ants and eagerly read their information. The panel names them clear ants at black iron rank, of the spiritual type, with the potential ceiling at silver rank sitting around 31%. Their ability is telekinesis, condensing spiritual power into something solid. Their current mutation evolution success rate reads 12%, and absorbing spiritual power raises that rate, making a spiritual type evolution overwhelmingly likely and any other type a slim chance. Spiritual type, an ant that specializes in spiritual power itself. The word alone unsettles me, and I stare at the little transparent things with my face full of astonishment. Ignoring everything else, I let a purple light flare in my left eye and sweep the 1 clear ant queen and the 5 ordinary clear ants into it. I tame them on the spot, as if terrified they might slip away right under my nose. Only then do I let myself look at them again, the way a man looks at buried treasure. Spiritual type ants. I honestly do not know how Wang Hian managed it. The man can cultivate spiritual type ants out of thin air, which is simply monstrous. I cannot hide how thrilled I am. Heaven knows how long I have ached for spiritual type ants, because spiritual power is my single greatest weakness. Under the shadow of the God King, with no ant of my own to counter him, unease has never fully left me. Now, with the clear ants, all I need to do is raise their rank and their numbers, and I will stop fearing the God King at all. Then, thinking of what it takes to cultivate a clear ant, my heart sinks. They devour spiritual power to evolve and to breed, and spiritual power materials are outrageously rare. Not a question of price so much as availability, almost never on the trade channel, all but priceless. Where am I supposed to find that much? My ants grow hungrier with every new type, and feeding the ones I have was already hard enough. When I had no spiritual type ants, I wanted them badly, and now that I finally hold them, I cannot afford to raise them. Then it hits me. I look back at the reading, at the line that says absorbing spiritual power raises the mutation evolution rate. Does that mean they only need spiritual power itself? Not necessarily the rare spiritual power materials. It would be exactly like light healing, who can drink in raw light sources as easily as light attribute materials. I am overjoyed, because if this is true, then the whole problem gets far simpler. I ask the little one whether draining spiritual power hurts humans. The clear ant answers that it does not, that any creature whose spiritual power is taken only needs rest to recover. It has not yet eaten the fruit that grants speech, and its rank and intelligence are both low, but through the species contract I catch its meaning without trouble. No harm at all. The most critical piece has fallen into place, and I could laugh. Humans carry spiritual power of their own, and it replenishes with rest. And if there is one thing my territory does not lack, it is people. Every black island I devour hands me somewhere between 3,000 and 6,000 vassals, the number swinging with how much infighting tore that island apart. My Black Island stands at a full 31 units, and while a fair share of that came from swallowing instances, I have still eaten a great many islands along the way. The number of subjects under me now runs past 80,000. They can easily feed the clear ant's appetite. For a moment I feel something close to sentiment. I never imagined vassals could serve a purpose like this. I kept careful order in the territory and raised my subjects' strength so their average spiritual power runs high, and I never dreamed it would matter this much. There is nothing wrong in letting the clear ants sip at it. Spiritual power is like physical strength, a cyclical, renewable force, and as long as the degree is measured, it will not so much as dent a subject's health. I turn it over and quickly sketch out a rough plan. From my own experience cultivating spiritual power, a person's spiritual power runs most active when they are thinking hard. So I will have the tunneling ants build a spiritual power factory for the clear ants inside the ant nest. Subjects can come in to read, to study, to work through math problems and stir their minds, while the clear ants drink the spiritual power that bleeds off them. With over 80,000 people to draw from, only a small fraction is needed at any time. I will set a rule that each person comes only once a week so everyone gets proper rest. I nod, pleased with myself, certain the idea is brilliant. I go straight to the office, call Tak Mungiel over, and walk him through the details. When I finish, I ask what he thinks. His cultivation must be paying off because he looks a good deal healthier this time, and he says my method is excellent, though the details could use polishing. For one, he tells me, calling it a spiritual power factory sounds cold, and cold names do little to fire up a subject's eagerness to learn. Why not call it the Hall of Knowledge instead? He says to leave it all to him, that he will arrange the rewards and the timing properly, and make sure my vassal's health never suffers. The Hall of Knowledge. Brilliant. I have always trusted Tak Mungiel, so once he says it that way I let the whole matter go, telling him it is in his hands. He waves it off as no trouble at all, just his job, and before long he sweeps out of my office with the clear ants in tow. Watching him hurry away, I cannot even begin to picture how much fervor the rules he sets for the Hall of Knowledge will kindle across my territory. With my hands free again, I return to the ant nest, take out the 2 bottles of growth fluid, and fall to thinking. Only 2 bottles, and I have to decide who gets them. Right now, only Mowal and Mars among my ants have reached diamond rank. Rock Spirit, Leisure Cloud, Thunder, Swift Shadow, and Light Healing are all still stuck at platinum, and now there is a clear ant on top of that. Light Healing is bound to Chongha's World Tree and can rise alongside the tree's rank, so there is no need to spend fluid on her, which saves me 1 precious dose. Except Chongha's own progress has been painfully slow. 09, Baekhyun, and I have all pushed into diamond rank. Will said nothing about it, but he casually tossed out a diamond rank monster corpse the other day, which makes it plain he has broken through too. I have no idea what is holding Xiangha back, and I resolve to ask her once I am done here. I frown down at the 2 bottles again. Even setting light healing aside, my shortfall in growth fluid is steep, and there is no telling how long before I get more. So I have to choose with care. I start cutting candidates one by one. Rock Spirit and Leisure Cloud are functional ants, and there is no urgency there. By seniority, the next dose ought to go to Swift Shadow, but if raw combat power is the measure, Thunder is the better fit. If Thunder climbs to diamond rank, then I have the Black Scythe Hunting Ant for physical strikes, the Plasma Ant for elemental attacks, and the Self-Destruct Ant for ultimate output, which is very nearly enough. So Thunder takes 1 slot decided. The other slot I still cannot settle. Rock Spirit, Leisure Cloud, Swift Shadow, which of them? I turn it over for a long while, and then it clicks, and my eyes snap up. The one with the greatest impact on me right now is not any of them at all. It is the Clear Ant. The Clear Ant can answer the God King's threat, and is a rare attribute ant besides, which makes it brutally practical against every other enemy I will face. I only just took it in, and all my other ants already sit at platinum, needing nothing but a mouthful of growth fluid to reach diamond. The Clear Ant is still a tiny black iron speck, and there is no telling how fast it climbs, even with a steady supply of spiritual power. If I want to pour a bottle into the Clear Ant and drag it to diamond rank, no one can say how long that would take. I weigh it and make my call anyway. I will spend it on the Clear Ant, with my current combat power, leaving Rock Spirit and the others where they are changes little. But suppose I feed the fluid to them first, and then fail to turn up a diamond rank corpse for a long stretch. The Clear Ant would be left stranded when the God King comes calling, and I would be caught flat-footed. So I put the diamond rank bottle away, walk to Thunder's ant nest, and hand over the other one. I tell Thunder to drink it and break through to diamond rank, and she thanks me before the words are even fully out. No creature can resist the lure of evolution, and Thunder tips the bottle back and swallows it whole in one greedy gulp. Digesting it takes time. I stroke her small head and tell her to absorb it slowly, and once she has advanced, to simply get on with cultivating ants. The lightning storage device holds more than enough energy for her needs. She tells me she understands. I leave the ant nest, take out my manual, and first fire off a message to Chungha, asking whether she has run into some problem and why she still has not broken through. I wait a while, and when no reply comes, I let it lie for the moment. Instead, I page through the manual to see what the shelter upgrade unlocked. The new ability is a microscopic map. The reading tells me, seated in the area core, letting me zoom in on any spot in the territory to pull up its detailed information. A simple function, unlike Super Leap last time which could power an attack or an escape, this one leans toward managing the territory from the inside. I rub my chin, mulling it over. Being able to inspect any location has its uses, since it makes planning development far easier. I will grant Tak Mungyel access and let him run it, and he should be able to steer the territory better than I ever could. I rarely have the time to micromanage the place anyway, so I would just assume keep playing the hands-off boss. 2 more days go by. Xiongha still has not answered me, and the teleportation request I sent her sank without a trace, like a clay ox walking into the sea. And today it is time, once again, for the vortex's pull to climb. I do not let myself go slack. I stare hard at the pocket watch in my hand, tracking the little light spot on the dial that marks my island on the map, waiting for the suction to rise. 10 minutes to go. The last time the vortex strengthened, its pull shot from 2 units straight to 10. And while the absolute figure means little to me, that rate of increase is genuinely frightening. If it keeps doubling on that curve, this round the suction climbs to 50 units. Even my Black Island, ranked first in area across the whole region, has a sailing speed of only 32.5, and I simply cannot stand against 50 units of pull. Never mind the ordinary chiefs whose islands run a handful of units and whose speeds crawl at 10 or 20. Facing 50 units, they would be sucked into pure self-doubt and hurled toward the vortex at the speed of light. Still, I am not walking in unprepared. Less than a 10-minute journey from my island sits a red instance, planted squarely between my Black Island and the vortex. I timed the suction increase, arrived early, and am holding my island back from touching the instance just yet. No matter how absurd the pull becomes, I can make contact with the instance and lean on the rule that clearing one grants immunity to suction, dodging the whole surge. The monsters in there can do nothing to me, but the erosion of the red mist has no defense, so I cannot squat inside forever without finishing it. Even so, between the time it takes to clear the instance and the 6-hour protection that follows, I can shrug off the suction for at least 10 hours. That is more than enough to slip past the worst of the opening chaos. I only hope the pull does not climb too far, because even prepared, if everyone else is swept into the vortex, all I have left is a slow death. Right on cue, the familiar voice returns. It announces that the Great Vortex event has run for 14 days, that the suction is upgrading for the second time, and that it now sits at level 3. The moment it falls silent, I feel the light spot marking my island seized by a strong pull. Across the map, the smaller black islands go tearing toward the vortex while others creep away from it at a snail's crawl, so slow that at a glance you would swear they were treading water. I frown and drive my island away from the vortex at full speed, and it grinds forward at an agonizing pace, dragging me right back to the feeling of my first days as a chief. But moving at all means the suction has not overtaken my sailing speed, and that alone lets me breathe. I watch the shift in my speed, run the numbers, and land on the figure. 20 units, a middling value. For an upper-tier chief like me, the impact is real, and for a chief with a small island, it is nothing short of a catastrophe. To hold a sailing speed of 20 units under supersonic sailing at level 3, a black island needs to be 15 units in size just to break even with the pull. Anything smaller, and unless they surrender and drift toward the vortex, they are frozen in place, unable to move an inch. And across the entire region, apart from the top 3 ranked islands, not a single one clears 15 units, which means every chief but those 3 is being dragged slowly and steadily toward the vortex, staring down death at any moment, anywhere. What kind of despair is that? I study the map, thinking, this is only level 3, and at this rate the next increase might overwhelm even me. There are 5 levels of suction in all, and level 5 is surely aimed at wiping the board clean. I have to devour every black island in the region and grow my own to 100 units, immune to the pull, before the suction reaches level 5, which gives me 13 days. Otherwise, even I may not weather the vortex's final madness. The thought pulls a faint smile out of me. Across the map, apart from the top 3, mine among them, the remaining islands are either tearing into one another or racing toward the 3 at the summit. Not one of them is still overreaching, still playing hide-and-seek. A few of the smallest have no neighbors near enough to fight, and they are too far from the 3 great islands to reach them, so they are being reeled toward the vortex on a course no one can reverse. The vortex itself simply keeps to its duty, faithful as ever, only its spin is picked up sharply now, like a cold, patient meat grinder. On the chat channel, panic and gloating crash into each other. One man begs to be saved before the vortex takes him. Another sneers that all his hiding and scheming has finally earned its reward, and a third pities only the innocent vassals doomed to die alongside the fool who steered them there. I look at the channel and the island sliding into the maw, my brow tight, and let out a helpless sigh. These people, for a scrap of illusory power in their hands, will drive themselves this far into madness. It casts a shadow over what had been a decent mood. Truly, utterly foolish. The deaths of the power-hungry are a small thing, but the thousands of blameless vassals on their islands are another matter. If a black island is devoured by another chief, I can still reclaim its territory and its vassals by devouring that chief in turn, since they are only transferred, never lost. But once an island is swallowed by the vortex, it is simply gone. No transfer, no recovery, and the region has one fewer for me to devour. Then whether I can even reach 100 units by eating everything left grows uncertain. As the days drag on, more islands will vanish down the vortex, so I have to move faster. Urgency rises in me, and I spare a last glance at those few stranded islands. Seeing no way out, they have swung their bows toward the yellow instance sitting right beside the vortex. A dying struggle. All they will do is feed the instance. That yellow instance is no easy meal even for me as I am now, let alone for a handful of desperate strangers. They are already finished. I fix their fate in my mind, shake my head, and look away. Then I turn my island toward an open stretch of the map, and the spot is anything but random. It is a location I picked only after careful calculation, sitting on the one unavoidable path between several surrounding black islands and the vortex. All I have to do is park my island here. Any island that wants to join me can ride the suction and come screaming toward my position at tremendous speed. 3 hours later, I have my island in place, and just as I predicted, 3 black islands of 4, 5, and 7 units swing around and set course for me. With the added pull of the level 3 vortex, they come on fast as lightning, and I reckon that in a single day and 2 hours, all 3 will merge into mine, one after another. Once I swallow them, my island reaches 47 units. After that, there are almost no small islands left to eat, which means it will be time for the final reckoning with the 2 remaining giant black islands. My manual chimes while I am still lost in thought. I assume it is 09, since after cultivating Thunder to Diamond rank, the demand for lightning element energy shot up, and I had asked her to build me some devices to catch and store it. But when I open the manual and see the flashing avatar, my eyes narrow and I let out a breath. It is not 09 at all. It is Chung-ha, out of contact for 2 whole days. She tells me she is fine. I ask her what happened, why she went dark for 2 days. We are deep in the vortex's grip now, every chief racing the clock for their life, and for her to drop off the map that long is genuinely strange. She apologizes. She spent the last 2 days in seclusion breaking through, and ran into some trouble on the threshold of diamond rank that held her up. That is why she did not warn me ahead of time and left me worrying. A little stunned, I write back that she has really broken into diamond rank. Chung-ha breaking into diamond rank means her world tree must have advanced too. I check light healing through the species contract at once, and I find that light healing's growth potential has already reached diamond rank. Reaching diamond in potential is not the same as reaching it in strength though, and light healing still needs the growth fluid Wang Heian brews from an array of rare materials to actually evolve. I had been so buried in other work that I never noticed, or I would long since have felt it through the power feedback of the Lord's heart after the ant's rank climbed. Free growth really is the most satisfying kind. I immediately order a sentry ant to carry a bottle of growth fluid to light healing. Then I pick the manual back up, a little puzzled, and ask Chiang how she kept herself safe through 2 full days of seclusion, with the islands tearing at each other outside. She corrects me. It was 3 days, not 2, and she confesses it all came down to sheer luck. Before she sealed herself in, her island was only 11 units, so to keep the vortex from dragging it off during her seclusion, she deliberately turned it to sail away from the pool. As it happened, while she was under, a string of not particularly large islands watched her drifting away from the vortex. They decided she was weak and came to devour her, sailing over and pressing against her island, one after another. She specializes in defense though, and her island bristles with defensive plants that grow by drinking in the enemy's energy, which gives them staggering endurance. So the attacking chiefs could not take her down. More kept piling in, and they even turned on and clawed at each other, and the whole tangle dragged on until the day she broke through. Once she did, she wiped them all out in a single clean sweep, and her island shot straight up to 32 units. There is a strategy like that. My expression goes odd, then settles into something reasonable. Chiong-ha really does specialize in defense, and with her mastery of plants, her offense has always been dismal. Barely 2 weeks ago, she faced down the Pharaoh and the primitive men, and it took my team and me to drive them off. After devouring those 2 black islands, her own let past all the rest. Yet even so, all these days later, she was still only 11 units. I never expected this seclusion to turn misfortune into fortune and haul her up to 32 units, a first-tier standard, in one stroke. Still, taking down the invaders right on the heels of her breakthrough tells me she must have grasped some fearsome offensive ability the moment she crossed into diamond rank. So I ask her, curious, whether her breakthrough handed her any attacking techniques. She reminds me of what she told me once, that after Little Green breaks through to diamond rank she can cultivate spirits, and that spirits carry both strong power and strong mobility. On top of that, she says, she unlocked an ability called animated plants upon reaching diamond rank, which lets her animate her plants so they move freely within a certain range, like living beasts. Between those two, she made short work of the enemies. Animated plants, spirits, both sound like terrifying abilities. For the longest time, Xiongha's strength has hovered near the bottom of our 5-person team, slipping even below where she stood when she first arrived in the Dark World. She often filled nothing more than a logistical role. I never expected that after all this quiet stockpiling, she would hit a true qualitative leap the instant she reached diamond rank. Something in me softens, and I laugh, telling her that from now on, whenever we run into a nasty enemy, I can lean on her support far more often. In passing, I ask her what sort of species spirits are. She answers with a smile, telling me to just say the word whenever I need her, though with my strength I probably will not most of the time. As for spirits, she says there are many different kinds, not unlike some of the fictional characters back on Blue Star. But since she only just broke through, she can raise nothing beyond tree spirits for now. She has only just crossed the threshold and just fought a brutal battle, and everything on her island is in ruins. Once she has tidied up, she means to invite us all over to see how it has changed. I tell her to go handle her own affairs, and that I will send some tunneling ants and hovering ants to help, and she thanks me. I set the manual down and route a batch of functional ants to Xiongha through the teleportation array to help her rebuild after the fighting. Tree spirits, I murmur, curious. As Xiongha's strength keeps rising, she will surely learn to cultivate other kinds of spirits, and I find myself wondering just how strong a spirit really is. Not only is she unharmed, her strength has taken a great stride, and my mood loosens considerably as I turn my steps toward the ant nest again. 2 whole days of drinking in spiritual power. Time to go see how the clear ants are doing. At the ant nest, I make straight for the spiritual power factory, or rather the Hall of Knowledge as it is called now. I have not even reached it when, from a distance, I catch sight of a 3-story square building that looks for all the world like a library. A crowd is packed onto the steps outside the first floor entrance, strung into a long queue, chatting as they wait for the next group to be let in. The talk drifting off the line is a study in contrasts. One man is groaning that he arrived at 6 and it is 9 now and he still has not made it inside. Another one-ups him, saying he came at 3 and is still standing there. Someone marvels that everyone is suddenly this hungry to learn. A fourth grumbles that if he were not exactly 100 contribution points short of trading for a skill book, he would never put himself through this. An hour in the Hall of Knowledge, he says, splits his skull worse than 3 sleepless nights. But another cuts him off, insisting that yes, his head throbs and he leaves feeling wrung dry every time. Yet after a good night's sleep, his whole spiritual power creeps upward. That does wonders for cultivating skills and pushing his realm higher. For the Lord to hand them an opportunity like this, he says, charging nothing and even piling on generous rewards. How could a man be more benevolent? The skeptic is stunned there is such a good deal to be had. The first man offers on the spot to transfer him 100 contribution points for his place in line, since his own brother is still queuing behind. That shuts the doubter up fast, and he backs down at once, apologizing for his own ignorance. Listening from a distance, I cannot help a flicker of surprise. What I set up as nothing more than a factory to strengthen the clear ants has quietly become a treasure trove for my subjects to cultivate their own spiritual power. An unexpected windfall. Having the clear ants draw off their spiritual power benefits them like this, it seems, though the effect likely only shows for those whose spiritual power runs weaker to begin with. For me, improving by having it drained is still far slower than cultivating death-heavy metal. Then again, grinding death-heavy metal too long gets tedious, so I could switch things up now and then and let the clear ants sip at my own for a change. I smile and leave the line undisturbed. With my hovering ability and the light wings the light healing ants lend me, I flash through an outside window and land on the 3rd floor in an instant. The 1st and 2nd floors are laid out like a library. Tables and chairs set for people to read, study, and burn off spiritual power. The 3rd floor is where the clear ant queen gathers the scattered spiritual power to nurture more ants. The moment I step onto it, a clear, ethereal little voice tells me the master has arrived. It is the clear ant. Her body is barely changed, still thumb-sized, still transparent as jelly, but under my sharpened gaze, I catch the subtle difference. She looks even clearer overall than before. Sure enough, when I check her reading, I find her rank has vaulted from black iron straight past bronze grade to silver rank. 2 ranks in 2 days, a genuinely stunning pace. Yet instead of joy, I let out a soft sigh. Silver rank. In the old days, a climb this fast would have delighted me. But now there is the God King bearing down. And to be of any use against him, the clear ant has to reach diamond rank. Hauling her from silver to diamond is far easier said than done. Certainly nothing to be finished overnight. I still hold 1 bottle of diamond rank growth fluid, enough to max out a platinum ant's growth in a single stroke. But I cannot pour it in until she reaches platinum rank, and she has 2 whole ranks to climb before then. Through the species contract, the clear ant queen catches my mood at once and tells me it is her own uselessness, that she cannot advance fast enough to fight for her master. Feeling the small ache of her guilt, I come back to myself and smile, stroking her tiny crystal jelly head with a fingertip to soothe her. I tell her it is not her fault. To climb from black iron to silver in 2 days is already the mark of real effort. I tell her not to fret, that I will find a way to turn up some spiritual power resources so she can rise faster. For now she should keep on as she is, slowly drinking it in and lifting herself. My comfort lifts the gloom from her, and she squints her eyes, quietly savoring the warmth of my fingertip. Then another thought strikes me and I smile down at her. She has reached silver rank now, and with it a basic intelligence, so by custom she ought to have a name. A clear ant, psionic, a specialist in spiritual power. I decide to call her Bright Mirror. She tilts her little head in confusion, not sure what Bright Mirror has to do with her, though she seems to think it sounds rather lovely. I explain that the name comes from an old verse I once learned on Blue Star. The Bodhi is not truly a tree, and the bright mirror not truly a stand, and since nothing exists to begin with, there is nowhere for dust to alight. The verse carries a strain of Buddhist teaching, I tell her, and I think it suits her, a cultivator of spiritual power, very well, and I hope she likes it. She murmurs the opening line to herself, her eyes gradually brightening, and though she cannot grasp its full meaning, her spirits soar. She thanks her master for bestowing the name, saying Bright Mirror loves it dearly. As long as she likes it, I tell her, that is enough, and I tell her to keep up the good work, and she promises she will. Seeing that her delight is nothing feigned, I let out a small breath of relief and leave the 3rd floor of the Hall of Knowledge with a smile. Day and night trade places, and another day flashes past. On this day, the 3 black islands of 4, 5, and 7 units arrive one after another and press against my own, all touching down at roughly the same time. After their chiefs set foot on my island, they still cling to a sliver of fantasy, wanting to bend a little to bow on the surface while nursing rebellion underneath. But the instant they lay eyes on the diamond rank army I send out to meet them, they abandon the effort and surrender without a fuss. I do not dwell on it. It would be stranger if men who clawed their way to chiefdom out of 10,000 rivals, and then survived until the suction hit level 3, would kneel meekly at the first ask. As long as they are sensible, they are exceptional, and once they become my vassals, they can no longer stir up any trouble. With the 3 swallowed, my black island reaches 47 units. Not only do I hold first place in the region without contest, even the 2nd and 3rd islands combined do not match my area. I am, plainly, a behemoth. When I sweep my gaze across the whole region now, there is not a single small island left, only the top 3 remaining. There is only one instance too, the one beside the vortex, which has already ripened into a green instance. At last, the final contest. My manual sounds again while I am staring at the map. It is Baekhyun, asking whether I am around. Baekhyun, why is he reaching out now? Puzzled, I write back quickly that I am here, and ask whether something has happened. He says it is nothing serious, only that he wonders if I still remember Noe Rui, the one we killed not long ago. I tell him of course I do. That is when we came face to face with the God King's spirit body. It was only a spirit body, and one that had not even unleashed its full strength. Yet it left me and my companions in a truly wretched state. It dragged my wariness toward the God King to its absolute peak. Baekhyun goes on. Every member of the Alliance of Gods we have killed carried both a God's token and a spirit body, did they not? I nod along and agree. Whether it was the pharaoh or the wolf-headed man, once they died their spirit bodies fled and left their God's tokens behind. It was precisely those tokens that let us slip into the Alliance of Gods in the first place. I ask whether he means he has a lead. No, Rui was blown to atoms, both his spirit body and his God's token untraceable, and with the God King's spirit body appearing then, he most likely scooped it up on the spot. Seeing Baekhyun raise it, I begin to sense where this is going. He tells me he thought exactly the same thing at the time, but after he cleaned up the wreckage and finished processing Noe Rui's belongings, he stumbled on a small surprise. I echo the words, a small surprise. He says yes. Noe Rui's spirit body did explode, but it shattered without scattering, and it was slowly reknitting itself in one place. By the time his tool detected it, it was already nearly whole again, and it still had the God's token with it. Had he not caught it early, it would have vanished without a trace. A shattered spirit body reknitting itself. What kind of bizarre stubborn life force is that? Startled, I ask quickly whether that means Noe Rui's spirit body is still alive, and whether we might yet wring some intelligence about the God King out of him. Baekhyun shoots that down fast. He says it is not like that. From what he can tell, Noe-Rui's spirit body has nothing left but spiritual power. Its consciousness utterly gone, so it holds no interrogation value. The reason it can still condense and hold a measure of activity, he suspects, has everything to do with the God King. I ask what he means, what the God King has to do with it. I sense something taking shape but cannot quite catch it. Baekhyun explains that Noe-Rui's spirit body carries a faint golden mark, a contingency the God King left inside him. Once it condenses fully, he believes it can seize control of the God's token and teleport straight back to the God King's side. He asks whether we have not already guessed as much. The God King raises vassals partly to extend his influence and partly to devour the spirit bodies of his fallen members and feed his own spiritual power cultivation. Noe-Rui's spirit body may be a mindless walking corpse now, but it still holds powerful, densely packed spiritual power, rare nourishment for the God King, so it stands to reason he would plant a failsafe in it. My gaze hardens, and I say low and even that we have still underestimated the God King. From now on, whenever we tangle with the alliance of gods, we have to move with more caution. Even after we destroy the body and scrub away every trace, we must hunt down the enemy's spirit body fragments and wipe them out for good. Otherwise, we risk feeding our foe and swelling the God King's arrogance. Baekhyun nods and agrees that with this God King, no amount of care is too much. Then he reminds me of our old bargain, that once he finished processing Noe-Rui's resources, he would pass me some of that elemental battle armor. He found a whole production line for it in the steel city Noe-Rui built, he says, so he can make more and keep me supplied. And Noe-Rui's spiritual power fragments, those he will hand over too. I have a subordinate skilled at interrogation who, if he remembers right, has done some study of spiritual power, so they should be of use to her. The god's token he means to keep for now, sealed away with an item, or the God King might sniff out its location. Soon he sends a trade request and passes me the elemental battle armor along with a clear bottle holding Noe-Rui's shattered spiritual power fragments. I thank Baekhyun and warn him that the next 2 increases in suction will be brutally dangerous and he needs to stay sharp. He tells me not to worry, that he has arrangements and nothing will go wrong. As long as he knows what he is doing, I answer, and I tell him to go see to his affairs and that we will reach out if anything comes up. He agrees, and I take my leave of him. Looking over the mountain of elemental battle armor, I cannot help but smile. With this batch, a whole tier of vassals in the territory can be forged into fighting strength fast. As for how to parcel it out, I will leave that to the professionals rather than muddy the waters myself. I pick up a communication ant and call Tak Mung-yul, asking him to take the armor, work out a distribution scheme, and pick the right candidates. Ever since Mowal grew fluent with the space rune, beyond the daily sales, a share of storage rings has naturally gone to our own people first. As my chief administrator, Tak Mung-yul was never going to be left out. Each ring holds only 1 cubic meter for now, but a shortage of quality can be made up entirely with quantity. He does not even bother with ants, just draws out a great fistful of storage rings and hauls away thousands of the elemental armors. With the space around me emptied out again, I look at the single clear glass bottle still in my hand. Inside, Noe-Rui's spirit body fragments are still straining to gather, but the bottle is split down the middle by a partition, cleaving it into 2 chambers. The fragments batter against the barrier, desperate to reunite, and never once breach the divider thin as a cicada's wing. I study them and fall to thinking, what are spiritual power fragments even good for? Baekhyun seemed to suggest they could go to Mei Muchong, and it is not out of the question. The trouble is, she is not really a pure spiritual power cultivator, so handing them to her would be a genuine waste. A pure spiritual power cultivator. Wait, my eyes light up as it hits me. I let Baekhyun lead me astray and miss the obvious. A pure spiritual power cultivator, and is there anyone purer than Bright Mirror? Noe-Rui had already pushed past Tier 2, a single step from breaking into Diamond rank. If Bright Mirror devours the whole of his spiritual power, I wonder if she might vault straight through Platinum in one go. The thought carries me directly to the 3rd floor of the Hall of Knowledge, where I find Bright Mirror diligently drinking in spiritual power. She stops the instant she sees me and greets me with all her warmth. I smile and tell her to pause a moment and try this, holding out the glass bottle of Noe-Rui's fragments. She blinks, asking what it is, and sniffs at it curiously. Then a look of deep intoxication washes over her, and her transparent complexion flushes with a milky white tinge that leaves her body a little less hidden than before. The thing inside seems terribly delicious, she tells me, pulling at her powerfully, and she asks whether it is meant for her. High-quality spiritual power really does hold a fierce draw for Bright Mirror, who lives on the stuff. I expected as much, so I smile and pat her small head. I tell her that since I brought it, of course it is for her, and to eat up. She thanks her master, and with my permission she can no longer hold back and pops the bottle open. The instant she does, the sealed fragments begin squeezing out of the mouth, crossing the barrier and trying to merge, and at that rate they would fully reunite within half an hour. But Bright Mirror, braced and ready, gives them no such chance. She clamps her mouth over the opening and inhales like a child sucking down jelly. One stormy pull, and Noirui's spiritual power rushes into her mouth and down into her belly. Gorging on spiritual power that pure, her thumb-sized body swells round and taut in an instant, until she topples over onto the ground, too stuffed to move. She flails her limbs trying to right herself and cannot quite manage it, calling out a weak little cry for her master. Seeing the state she has gotten herself into, I smile and shake my head, stepping in to nudge her gently with a finger and roll her back over. Certain she must be full now, I tell her to settle in and properly digest all that spiritual power. She answers yes, but the massive load of pure spiritual power has already made her drowsy, her eyes sliding half shut, her voice thinning out. I tell the few sentry ants standing by to watch over Bright Mirror carefully and to call me the moment anything happens, and they answer at once. Once I have looked her over, I leave a handful of sentry ants to guard her and depart with my mind at ease. I only hope Bright Mirror can reach platinum rank this time, because the instant she does, the diamond rank growth fluid will carry her straight into diamond. Cultivate a swarm of diamond rank clear ants, and the God King is in for a nasty surprise. Out of the Hall of Knowledge, I return to my office, take out the pocket watch once more, and look at the map. On the whole regional map, only 3 points remain now. My Black Island, a 33-unit island, and a 23-unit island. The vortex churns dead center, and beside it the instance is ripened into some green or cyan color I cannot quite place. My island is bearing down on the 33-unit one, though under the suction my advance is sluggish. Luckily, the 33-unit island is sailing toward me as well, and while it too fights the pull, it is not much faster than I am. With both of us closing, there is hope we make contact within 5 days, before the next surge of suction. I run the numbers in my head. With the 3 islands devoured, mine now sits at 47 units, and all my navigation speed bonuses total 305%, which works out to 40.5 units after the boost. Even sailing straight into the 20 units of a level 3 suction, that leaves me 20.5 units of speed, hardly slow. Absorb the 33-unit island and I gain another 16.5, reaching 57, so even if the suction rockets to 50 units in 5 days, I will not be cornered. Take the last 23-unit island before the next increase, and my island climbs higher still. My mood eases at the thought. Then I look at the 23-unit island. Unlike the 33-unit one, it is not sailing toward me at all but straining to flee the vortex, and under the suction its speed is so wretched it looks like it is treading water. Had it turned toward my position instead, it would be running with the pull and the going would be far easier. I frown and shake my head. Another fool starving for power. Why not face reality and settle who stands above whom? It is bound to happen sooner or later, and thrashing like this is simply undignified. I snap the pocket watch shut and slide it back into my pocket, done fretting over it, and turn to preparing for the coming clash with the 33-unit island. At this pace we meet in just 4 days, and I have to prepare thoroughly. Even a lion throws its full strength at catching a rabbit, and this is a chief among the region's top 3. I do not fool myself into thinking I tower over them just because my island is 47 units and dwarfs the other 2. Island size holds no absolute link to strength. I have not forgotten that mine reached 47 largely because the last 3 chiefs chose to fold themselves into me. Their willingness came down to nothing grander than my island happening to sit between them and the vortex. Had either of the other 2 held my spot, the outcome would have run exactly the same. At that very moment, the chief of the 33-unit Black Island is thinking the same thoughts I am. He stares at the point on the map marked 47, the light of my island, his face thick with indignation, telling himself I only got lucky and had best not assume I have already won. As he snorts coldly, the water molecules in the air around him seize into ice on the instant and shatter to the ground. It was only a ripple of emotion, no ability released on purpose, yet it reshaped the world around him. That is nothing a platinum rank could ever manage. This chief's strength has, without question, reached diamond rank. I do not know the strength of my next opponent, so I simply do everything I can to be ready. Then a voice reaches me, telling me the God King has sent a message. I am in the middle of trading for the supplies my ant queens need on the trading channel, working down the list Tak Mungyal compiled, when the signal comes in through the destruction dragon ant. My gaze sharpens and I stop everything at once, driving my spiritual power through the species contract to seize control of the destruction dragon ant in an instant. The moment I take the reins, the God King's voice comes through the God's token, addressing his hunter, asking how the pursuit of the fugitive is going. Hunting myself, with the God King footing the bill, I already have my answer ready, and I give it without a flicker of hesitation, wearing all the false devotion I can muster. I tell His Excellency the God King that I am still some distance from the fugitive's location. By the plan it should have taken only 2 days to close the gap, but the gravitational pull suddenly intensified, and the fugitive seemed to sense something and bolted in the opposite direction. For the time being, I cannot catch up. The God King's voice cuts out for a moment, then returns with a cold snort of displeasure. He says I am too slow. With the God Descent ability bound to the God's token, the fugitive cannot escape, so I must seize the chance. I answer that I understand, that with only 3 black islands left in the whole area now, the man has nowhere to run. The God King says very well. After I kill the fugitive, I am to remember to collect the Lost God's token. With that final order, the flashing token goes dark, and his voice vanishes without a trace. Is it over? I let out a heavy breath, just now to keep the God King from catching the faintest scent of anything wrong. I held myself razor-taut the whole way through. Not yet. It is not time to show my hand to the God King. I have to buy more time, wait until Bright Mirror reaches diamond rank, and cultivate more clear ants first. It has been 2 days now, and I wonder how far along Bright Mirror's absorption has come. My consciousness peels away from the destruction dragon ant and slides back into my own body, and my frame, slumped in the chair, regains its strength. I stand and walk toward the Hall of Knowledge. Soon I am outside it again, and before I can even step through the door, I feel an extraordinarily powerful surge of spiritual power flash across the 3rd floor. Could it be that Bright Mirror has broken through? Startled, I fly up to the 3rd floor at once. The instant I reach the room, my attention is dragged to Bright Mirror, to the sheer undeniable weight of her spiritual power. To the naked eye, she has turned even more transparent than before, so faint that an ordinary person could rub their eyes raw and still fail to make out her shape. So Bright Mirror has advanced. A flash of joy lifts me, and anticipation with it. After devouring Noe Rui's Tier 2 spiritual power, it would be abnormal for her not to advance. So what I am truly eager to learn is which realm she has reached. She tells me yes, that thanks to the treasure her master gave her, she feels far stronger after taking it in. I nod, let the golden light bloom in my right eye, and look at her. The reading says platinum rank. Platinum rank. Seeing her realm clearly, I am overjoyed. Reaching platinum means she can use the growth fluid to advance. And with that, what is there left to fear from the God King? Then, reading further down her information, I find a second happy surprise. Her growth potential sits at platinum rank, 78%. It catches me off guard, because I truly did not expect Noe Rui's spiritual power fragments to top her up this far. My earlier ant queens who used diamond rank growth fluid to advance could only make the leap once their growth potential had fallen below the 10% mark of platinum. From there, the fluid would fling them instantly to diamond. Bright Mirror's potential has climbed straight to 78% of platinum, which means she needs only a small half bottle of diamond rank growth fluid to cross into diamond, and the fluid left over is enough to raise a second diamond rank ant queen entirely. A spark of excitement runs through me. A few of my veteran queens, Swift Shadow and Rock Spirit among them, have slowly nudged their growth potential above 30% of platinum through a steady diet of natural treasures. Leisure Cloud, who joined comparatively late, still has a long road ahead. Since Bright Mirror has spared me such a large share of the fluid, nothing stops me from lifting either Swift Shadow or Rock Spirit into diamond rank. I had reckoned it would be plenty if Bright Mirror simply reached diamond, since improving her strength is the top priority now, and I never dreamed of a windfall like this. Do I boost Swift Shadow or Rock Spirit? A happy dilemma. I stroke my chin, weigh it for a moment, and settle it. Rock Spirit, given her current state, is temporarily sufficient for both pioneering construction and hacking combat tunnels through the earth. Swift Shadow, on the other hand, carries not only superb reconnaissance but strong assassination skills. In the time she has followed me is second only to Mowal, yet I have kept stalling her rank for the sake of combat power. It is time for Swift Shadow to advance. Decision made. I waste no more of it. I bring Bright Mirror along, summon Swift Shadow, and we head to Wang Hyun's office, where I hand him the growth fluid and ask him to help see the two of them through their breakthroughs. I tell Wang Hyun to split one bottle of growth fluid between the two little ones and portion it out according to their growth progress, because I am genuinely no good at this. He is the professional, so I leave it to him. He pushes up his glasses and simply accepts, telling me only that he understands. I ask roughly how long it will take, a touch impatient, keen to see the new abilities Swift Shadow will unlock once she reaches diamond rank, and Bright Mirror's as well. Because I have always had Bright Mirror devote herself to absorbing spiritual power to raise her rank, she has never once cultivated ants. At this point, I know only that clear ants begin with the ability of telekinesis, and every ability a clear ant holds from black iron to diamond rank remains a complete blank to me. If it goes quickly, Wang Hyun says, 2 hours should be enough. Reading my impatience, he does not waste another word, just turns and strides toward the cultivation room. I watch his retreating figure disappear into the cultivation room, and I smile and nod. Wang Hyun is so reliable, but 2 hours seems a little long. In the past, forget 2 hours, even 2 days would not have felt long to me. When a man is brimming with anticipation, though, his sense of time turns into something else entirely. I give my head a gentle shake and walk out. Never mind, I will go run another round of death heavy metal in the gravity room to hone my spiritual power, and the time will pass faster that way. After I finish a round of death heavy metal in the gravity room, my whole face has gone deathly pale from the ordeal. My ears will not stop ringing, as though someone stuffed a swarm of mosquitoes into them to buzz on without end. I drink down a bottle of spiritual power recovery potion, and feel a little relief seep back in. Checking the time, I find that 2 hours have quietly slipped away.